Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto and Grayfia married part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Pain. Unimaginable pain. Such pain is being felt right now by one named Naruto Uzumaki. Why, you say? Well, one will feel such pain when a sealing jutsu backfired on your face. Naruto Uzumaki. Number 1 hyperactive ninja. Child of prophecy. Reincarnation of Azura Otsutsuki. And Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, Kurama. Well, that is, in a matter of minutes, that would be now Jinchuriki of the Jubi. That is, if he survives, that is. During the final battle between good and evil, goddess versus mortal men, Naruto and Sasuke Uchiha was about to seal Kagaya Otsutsuki, the mother of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of 6 paths. When the sealing jutsu was about to seal Kagaya, the jutsu backfired on them and latched itself onto Naruto. Thus, his predicament right now. Aya Hag. Naruto. Hold on. Don't you die on me, shouted Kurama. Kurama, I can't, it hurts so much, said Naruto. God damn it, Naruto. You can do this. We can do this. I'll share your burden. I'll pull the Jubi into me. Just don't die. Then let's do this, Kurama. Right. Raya Ahgag. Raya Ahgag. Outside of this, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi could only watch their blonde teammates scream into the heavens, unable to do anything but pray to Kami that Naruto could pull it through. Then the unthinkable happened. Naruto's chakra skyrocketed to unimaginable proportions. Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi could feel the gargantuan pressure push them down emanating from the blonde. The very air they breathed was saturated with chakra. The skies then darken, the winds howl in anger, the very earth where they stand was shaking. And then silence. Their blonde teammate dropped to the ground with a loud thump. Sakura ran to Naruto, along with Kakashi and Sasuke. Sakura then turned over Naruto to his back and put his head on her lap, before she used her mystical palm technique to check Naruto for any damages or abnormalities. To her horror, their blonde friend and teammate is dead. Darkness. Only darkness he could see. Not even his hands, feet, or body he could see. Where am I? Why am I here? What the hell happened? You died, Naruto. That is why you are here, said a disembodied voice. I died? But Kurama. Me and Kurama, answered Naruto. Yes. You and Kurama. You saved them. You both saved the whole elemental nations from a fate worse than death. Heh. If he was here, he would be cursing his heart out, knowing he saved the very nations that imprisoned him. Damn straight, answered a deep and thundering voice. Kurama? I'm glad you're still alive. I thought you'd be released now that I'm dead and all, said Naruto. Same here, Kit. But enough of this. Why don't you show yourself, Tusen, said Kurama. Hagoromo Gigi is here? Asked Naruto, still can't see anything. My. Impatient as always, Kurama. And yes, Naruto. I'm here. And I owe you both an explanation, answered Hagoromo. Explanation? For what? Asked Naruto. For starters, the reason why you can't see is because your eyes are still adapting. And your body is changing, answered Hagoromo. Adapting? Changing? What do you mean? I'll explain it in due time. But first. Kurama, how are you feeling? Better than ever, Tusan. Better than ever, answered Kurama, feeling his newfound power coursing through his veins. Why? What's the matter with Kurama? Asked Naruto, still trying to open his eyes. There's nothing wrong with him, Naruto. Far from it, actually. Huh? Out with it, Tusan. You owe us both an explanation on why you pull us here. Fine. Can an old man have fun for once in his eternal life? Never mind anyways, the reason you are here, Naruto, along with Kurama, is that I want you both to meet someone. Who is it? Asked Kurama, with Naruto nodding to him. Naruto could hear something walking up to them. Judging from the sound of the footsteps, it was a person. The said person stopped walking and then it spoke. Hello, Naruto, Kurama. It's nice to finally meet you two in person. Hagoromo holds you both in high regards. Naruto raised an eyebrow, despite not being able to see anything for a while. Hi. Who might you be? Oh. Forgive me, Naruto. My name is God, former leader of the Judeo-Christian religion. God. Former leader of the Judeo-Christian religion. Father of the angels, fallen angels, and devils. Towering at 6'2", has deep sky blue eyes, alabaster white skin, and long blonde hair that was tied in a ponytail. He wears a white business suit with gold trimmings and gold tie. God? As in Kami? And what do you mean, former? Asked Naruto. God could only chuckle before answering, close, but no. Just God. And former because, for the lack of better word, I died. Now that was a surprise. You died? How? God sighed tiredly before answering, War. War could do that to a person, even for the likes of me. Naruto was silent for a moment before an aura of maturity engulfed the blonde. He then asked, Explain? I like this kid, thought God, before answering. You see, it all started when I casted out the angels that opposed my teachings. My sons and daughters. My creations. They allowed themselves to be corrupted. Then came the angels who allowed themselves to fall from their sins. Hence the birth of fallen angels. The ones who fall from their sins are called fallen angels. The ones who I casted out for opposing me are called devils. He have this faraway look. Before continuing, I thought we could live in peace, but their sins had grown into something worse. Pride, greed, lust, gluttony, sloth, envy, and wrath. Those 7 deadly sins grew so much in them, they could not control it anymore. Hence, the war started. His face was now a look of sadness and regret before he added, At first it was just us angels and devils. After years of fighting, the fallen angels joined the fray. During those years, the fallen angels called themselves the Grigori, led by one of my fallen sons, Azazel. With the devils, they were led by the 4 great Satans. The war lasted for many, many years, until that fateful day. It was supposed to be me against my eldest son, but I didn't count on bringing the other 3. We battled for days, trading blows after blows, blades after blades. In the end, I won against them. But the wounds I gained from the fight were too great for me. After I transferred my leadership to my successor, I finally succumbed to my injuries. I'm sorry it had to go that way, God. But forgive when I say that, it was all your fault in the first place. I know. If it wasn't for Hagoromo, I wouldn't even think of it that it was my fault. So, why do you want to meet us? I'm sure meeting us isn't the only reason you're here, said Naruto. You're right, that's not the only reason. I'm here because I'm asking for your help in bringing peace into my world. Naruto was stunned. A deity was asking for his help. A fucking deity. And me? Why me? Of all the people in the world to choose from, why me? Because you, Naruto, is special. Believe it or not, you're incorruptible. You make friends wherever you went. Heck, you can even turn the ones who have fallen back to good. So that's why I chose you, Naruto. There's no one better than you. You are the key to make my world a better place. Naruto was in deep thought by this point. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. On the bright side, he could start anew in this new world. Sure, he has to gain new friends, not that it would be a problem for the blonde. But what about his friends here? Will he would be able to return? What about his dream of being Hokage? There's so much to think about, and so little time. It's now or never. Leave, for the betterment of a new world? Or stay? There's only one question he would be asking, and that would be if I agreed to this, will I ever go back here in the elemental nations? I'm afraid not, Naruto. You would be staying there forever, not unless you mastered your powers, said Hagoromo, while looking at him with sympathy. Oh, Naruto looked down in sadness. He was leaving his home, his friends, his loved ones to a world that is needed of saving. A world that's in need of Naruto Uzumaki. I'm sorry, Naruto. You are the only one who could save this world from its own destruction. Which is why Kurama is here to accompany you on your mission to bring peace into this world. From that mere sentence, the blonde brightens up before he heard his partner and friend said, It would be my pleasure accompanying you in this new adventure, Naruto. Besides, this could be fun. Naruto smiled at his partner and friend, before raising up his hand and balled it into a fist. Kurama smiled before he too, bringing up his own hand and bumped fist with Naruto. I take it it's a yes then? Asked God with a smile. Yes, God. I'll do whatever it takes to bring peace into this world, said Naruto, before Hagoromo suddenly spoke. Now that's out of the way. Naruto, it's time to open your eyes. Naruto raised again an eyebrow before he tried to open his eyes. To his surprise, his eyelids slowly opened, and for the first time in his life, everything was clear. Like he has perfect eyesight. He could see things as far as his eye could see, and still he could see it clearly. No blurriness, To make it better, his body felt amazing. Powerful, even. He then looked at Hagoromo and asked, "Why do I feel like there's something different about me, Hagoromo Gigi?" Hagoromo smiled at Naruto before saying, "Look at your eyes, Naruto." Naruto widened his eyes before Hagoromo conjured a mirror before giving it to Naruto. Naruto looked at his reflection and his jaws dropped to the ground. Hard. It's how. You're the new Jubi Jinchuriki, Naruto. And Kurama is the new Jubi. Hearing this, Naruto suddenly snapped his head to Kurama's direction. And to his surprise, Kurama really is the new Jubi. Gone was his 9 tails. Now it's 10 tails. His size grew even more gigantic. His very being was radiating power like no other. And his eyes are the same with Naruto. "I can't believe it, I'm actually the new Jubi Jinchuriki," said Naruto in awe. "You control the most powerful dojutsu in the elemental nations, Naruto. I trust you will be responsible in using this," explained Hagoromo. Naruto straightened up and once again, gone was the knucklehead ninja. In was the veteran Naruto of the 4th Shinobi World War. "I understand, Hagoromo Gigi. Now, I'll be explaining what your dojutsu could do. You basically control every Rinnegan and Sharingan techniques. Even the Mangekyo Sharingan. Your body also adjusted to Kurama's more potent chakra, so you might want to train your body again to get used to it." Naruto nodded at Hagoromo's explanation before Hagoromo gestured for him to come closer. Hagoromo then raised his hand and touched Naruto's forehead before saying, "Now, I'm going to transfer every jutsu and every element I know to you. Use it well." Before Naruto was flooded with information. "Son of a bitch. Feels like the time I accidentally dispelled 20 clones when I was training with Pervy Sage." After the knowledge transfer was done, Naruto was approached by God, then he spoke, "Naruto, before we transport you to this new world, I would like you to meet somebody." He then gestured Naruto, along with Kurama and Hagoromo, to follow him. They walked for a while, before they saw at the distance a flying red dragon. That's new. They stopped walking before the red dragon descended from its flight, landing in front of them. "Naruto, Kurama, Hagoromo, I want you all to meet Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor," said God, gesturing them to Drake. "Greetings, I'm Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor," introduced Drake. "Hello?" "Hey." "Sup?" Naruto, Kurama, and God stared at Hagoromo with deadpan expressions. Hagoromo could only say, "What?" Sighing tiredly, God then explained, "Naruto, as a gift for accepting my favor, Drake will also accompany you as your own sacred gear, the boosted gear. As of this moment, not only you are the new Jinchuriki of the Jubi, you are now the new Sekiryu." Drake let out a primal roar before bowing to Naruto, saying, "It will be an honor, fighting alongside such a powerful warrior of your caliber, Naruto. What say you, partner?" Naruto bowed also to Drake before answering, "The honor is mine, Drake. I hope we can work together, along with Kurama over here, to bring peace to your world. Our world. Together, partner." Naruto then raised his right arm and formed a fist, pointing at Drake. Drake chuckled deeply, before he too raised his scaly right hand and fist bumped with Naruto. He then said, "Yes. Let us work together, partner. And you too, Kurama. I may not like this sharing and all that crap. But yes, let's work together," answered Kurama. "Good. I'd rather have you both as friends rather than bickering amongst yourselves," said Naruto, to which Hagoromo and Kurama looked at him with raised eyebrows. "What?" said Naruto. Oh, nothing. God could only chuckle at the scene in front of him before straightening himself and said, "Now that you three are all acquainted, Drake, if you will." Drake nodded before he was enveloped with crimson light, blinding Naruto, Kurama, and Hagoromo. After the light died down, Drake has transformed into a red gauntlet, with 2 yellow horns at the top, and a green gem embedded at the back of the palm. God then picked up the gauntlet, and gestured Naruto to put it on. Naruto walked up to God and picked up the red gauntlet before putting it on his right arm. "What now?" asked Naruto. "Now I'll start binding Drake into you, and transfer my knowledge of my world into you. This may hurt a little," said God, before he touched gauntlet with his left hand, with his right hand touching Naruto's chest. He then started to chant something that he couldn't understand, and before he could blink, a golden magic circle appeared on where they stood. After 10 minutes of golden light shows and one hell of a headache, the ritual was done. "Any more knowledge transfer you two will do to me?" said Naruto sarcastically, while rubbing his head with his hand. "That would be all, Naruto. I think you're all set and ready to go," said Hagoromo. What about Kurama? Is he not going to be sealed in me? Asked our blonde hero. Oh, he is already sealed in you. I just let him out for a bit via summon, answered Hagoromo. Oh, okay, said Naruto, before Kurama nodded at him and he disappeared in a cloud of smoke, returning to his seal. I'm all set, Hagoromo. GG, God. God and Hagoromo nodded at him before Hagoromo used one of his Rinna Sharingan techniques to open a portal. By the way, you can turn on or off your eyes just like the Sharingan. You just have to cut the chakra flow to your eyes, said Hagoromo. And train with Drake when you get there. When you're at it, put up a barrier so that you won't draw any attention to you, said God. I will. Thank you, Hagoromo. GG, God. Till we meet again, said Naruto, before he walked up to the portal and entered inside, leaving God and Hagoromo to themselves. Both were silent before God said, Do you think he could do it? Without looking at God, he answered with a smile, Believe me, my good friend. He will deliver. He isn't called the #1 unpredictable ninja for nothing. I really hope so. Naruto exited through the portal and was surprised to see the landscape was a bit barren for his taste. And is it me or is the sky purple? How weird. We're in the underworld, partner. That's why you're seeing purple sky, Drake said. Oh, okay then. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Oh, and thanks for the info, Drake replied Naruto, while eyeing the surroundings for any signs of life. Your world is a little bland, Drake. Is it really this depressing? Asked Kurama to his co-tenant. What? It is really depressing. It's not always this depressing. This was once a field filled to the brim with trees, flowers, and grass, answered Drake, reminiscing the time when all was quiet. That is, before the damn war broke out. What happened here? Asked Naruto, before kneeling to the ground to grasp a black-colored helmet. War, partner. War. Devils tend to go all out on their magic when provoked, answered Drake. Naruto sighs before he stood up and walked to the center of the field. Closing his eyes, he steadied his breath and relaxed his body to the point where he looks like he isn't breathing. What is he doing? Asked Drake to Kurama. You'll see, and in 3, 2, 1, and just like that, Drake felt a foreign power cover Naruto like a blanket. Untamed and pure energy, covering him up from head to toe before it entered his body. What's this? I've never felt this kind of power before. This, my new scaly friend, is what we call senjutsu. Naruto is currently gathering natural energy to himself. You continue to impress me, Naruto Uzumaki. Truly, you are worthy of being my partner, thought Drake before Naruto slowly exhaled and let out the natural energy he absorbed back into the world. He then suddenly spoke and still has his eyes closed. The natural energy around here is tainted. So much hate, anger, every negative emotion, no wonder nothing's growing here anymore, Naruto said before he opened his eyes, his Rinna Sharingan glowing with power. He then made a hand seal, tiger, and then snake, before he said the words that Drake will forever remember. Mokutan Hijitsu, Jukai Koten. And the unthinkable happened. Trees, giant green trees, sprouted up from the ground. From the very epicenter of it all, the trees sprouted as far as the eye could see, growing at a rate that Drake couldn't hope to see in his life. Such control of nature, said Drake in awe. The only one who could make this remotely possible is God himself. It's just a technique of mine, Drake. Well, it's my reincarnation's technique, actually. But you get the idea, Naruto said while admiring his work. Damn, Naruto. You don't hold back. Having almost infinite supply of chakra has its perks, Kurama, Naruto said before inhaling the fresh air that the trees were letting out. Drake could only stare at the newly grown forest before he called for his partner's attention. Partner, I think it's time for you to train your body and practice your techniques. Plus, I'll be teaching you on how to properly wield me as your sacred gear. Naruto nodded his head before he answered, You're right, Drake. It's time to train. He then positioned his hands, making a horse seal before saying, Kaiga Bunshin no Jutsu. In a cloud of white smoke, out came 1,000 clones of the blonde sage. Drake could only drop his jaw on the proverbial ground before saying, Why, you can make solid C copies of yourself. Yeah. Chakra, remember? Answered Naruto with a shrug of his shoulders. He then positioned his hands into a snake seal before saying, Fuinjutsu, Rikuri-shan no Shihiki. Naruto then placed both of his hands on the ground before an arena-sized barrier materialized around them. He then looked at his clones and said, All right. Listen up. I want you all to divide yourselves into 5 groups consisting of 200 clones in a group. Group 1 is tasked to train in all the techniques of each element. Group 2 will focus on the Mangekyo Sharingan's ocular techniques. Group 3, on the other hand, will train on using the Rinnegan's ocular techniques. And when I say all of them, I mean all of them. Group 4 would be practicing Fuin Jutsu. And lastly, Group 5. You will be coming with me. I'll need a good old-fashioned sparring while I use the boosted gear. All of you can go all out. The barrier I put up would cover our chakra signatures so no one could sense us. The landscape will grow back when we're done. Now go! Do your thing! Roger that, boss, replied all the clones to the original. And with that, the group of clones scattered and all hell broke loose. Naruto and the group of clones that are tasked as his sparring partners was moving on to the center of the barrier to train with Drake's power. While walking, they could hear explosions explode in the distance, feel the ground shake where they walk, hear the cries of jutsus that are being thrown, and ethereal avatars at towers in the distance. Arriving at the center of the forest, Naruto then scattered his clones and let them know to get ready for the spar. He then sat on the ground before he asked Drake, saying, "So, Drake, how do we do this?" "Right. Just feel the gauntlet on your right hand and say, 'Dragon Booster,'" answered Drake. "Okay then. Shouldn't be that hard." Naruto then took a deep breath before feeling the boosted gear's power on his right hand. Locking onto the power, he then said, "Dragon Booster." Bright crimson light emanated from his right hand before the boosted gear manifested on his right hand up to his forearm. Opening and closing his fist, Naruto couldn't help but marvel at the boosted gear's design. "It actually looks pretty good, Drake. So, what does this? It does?" asked Naruto to his new partner. "The boosted gear doubles your power, Naruto. Hence from its namesake, boosted gear. Try it yourself. Just say boost and you'll feel the difference." Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto took a deep breath before saying, "Boost." The green gem on the boosted gear lit up and announced the word boost. Before Naruto felt his power doubled right then and there. "Son of a bitch, it did work. How many times I can boost my own power?" asked Naruto. "Depends on how your body can take it. Boost will only work up until you reach your physical limit," answered Drake. "Ho? What if I say it in succession? Will it work?" "I think not. You have a 10-second interval before you can call upon another boost power-up." "Come on, Drake. Don't be a party pooper. Let me try," answered Naruto before he said in succession, "Boost. Boost. Boost. Boost." To Drake and Naruto's surprise, the boosted gear answered, "Boost, boost, boost, boost." "Holy shit, it did work," said Drake in disbelief. "Meh. So how can I release this?" "Oh, just concentrate on the collected boost and let it all out." Okay, then Naruto extended his right hand forward before concentrating on the collected boost on the gauntlet. He then saw the gem lit up and the gauntlet said, "Explosion." Power. 5x of his power were boosted. He felt so alive. Damn. With this boosted gear, Naruto would be unstoppable, thought Kurama, while watching everything from Naruto's perspective. "Alright. This should be enough," said Naruto before looking at his clones before gesturing them to come at him. Not far from the newly grown forest, a beautiful woman was running from her pursuers. She has long silver hair, beautiful silver eyes, and a body that would make any woman go crazy with jealousy. "I got to make it to Surzex and the anti-Satan faction. They were right all along. We're doomed if we allow them to continue on their reign of tyranny," muttered the Silverette before she dogged a magic attack that came from one of her pursuers. "Where are you going, you traitorous bitch? Resistance is futile. Either way, you're good as dead, like the anti-Satan trashes," said one of the pursuing devil before firing another magic spell at the running traitor. The woman dodged again before firing her own magic spell. She shot an ice spike at the closest devil that immediately found its mark, right directly at the devil's heart, killing one of the pursuer. "You goddamn traitor! I don't care if Lord Rizavan Lucifer wants you alive and unspoiled, Grayfia Lucifuge. But we will have fun with you before we turn you in. We'll be sure you'll be screaming our name after we're done with you," said the devil with venom and untamed lust within his eyes when he said her name. Grayfia narrowed her eyes before she was suddenly blocked by a barrier made by the devils who were pursuing her. She gritted her teeth when she saw that they began to surround her on all sides, making her chances of escape from slim to none. "Now, Grayfia, what say we start our little session?" He said the devil with a laughter of perversion. Grayfia could only steel her resolve before readying herself for the fight of her life. "I'd rather die before you break me, asshole." And with that, the battle of Grayfia's life started. She could only hope that someone would save her from a fate worse than death. While this was going, Naruto was busy fighting all his clones using the boosted gear. He was about to end one of his clones when he suddenly froze in mid-punch. The clones stopped also to eye their creator if he's okay. "Boss, what's the matter?" asked one of the clones. "I felt a surge of power. It's coming from the eastern end of the forest," answered the real Naruto while looking at the direction of the power surge. "Do you want us to investigate the power surge, boss?" "No, it's fine. I'll do it myself. One of you should dispel so that the others know what's going on," said Naruto before running at the direction of the power surge. The clones nodded at the original before one of them suddenly spoke. "You all heard the boss. One of us dispel while the others continue on what the hell we're doing." "Free for all, everyone?" asked one of the clones. "Ho! I'm game. Come on. Let's get this party started. Banzai." Grayfia was tired. Exhausted even. She was littered with cuts and bruises, and her magic reserves is nearly depleted. The area was littered with ice and the broken and dead bodies of the loyalist devil that are dead set of having their way with her before they returned her to the four Satans. "So, Grayfia, are you done yet? I admit I'm impressed that you managed to cut our numbers in half. But I doubt you could still continue doing it while you're in your state," said the lead devil with a smirk. Grayfia could only gritted her teeth once again. And for the first time in her devil existence, she was afraid. Afraid on what will they do her? Afraid that her life would be reduced to a broken woman in a cage, waiting for the next man to have his way with her, over and over and over again. She summoned the remaining magic powers she had, before two ice blades manifested on both of her hands. She assumed her battle stance and readied herself for the final clash for her freedom. She then launched herself at the closest enemy at breakneck speed before slashing the throat of the devil, dropping at the ground, dead. She then turned on her heels before slashing the eyes, then stabbing devil at heart, killing him. She brought up her hands in an X-like shape, blocking the sword swipe. She suddenly launched her leg backwards, kicking the assailant from behind before he could stab her. She then suddenly kneed the one in front of her with such force on the stomach, that the devil let go of his weapon in favor of holding his stomach. Grayfia then reversed her grip on one of ice blades she had before stabbing it on the back of the head of the devil. She was about to attack the next devil she see when she was suddenly blindsided by the lead devil. She was then ganged up by the loyalist devil, disarming her before she was held down by two devil soldiers. "I told you, Grayfia. Resisting us is futile. And now, for the price of your traitorous act," the lead devil then walked towards her slowly. Grayfia could only shake in fear on what was going to happen to her. Every devil around her were eyeing her with lust. Like a piece of meat, ready to ravage by savage men. She could feel the lead devil touch her face, then slowly, brought his hands down to her breast, then to the zipper that was holding her bodysuit close. She then felt the zipper slowly go down from her neck to her breast. Her eyes started to water before she closed them, waiting for the inevitable to happen. She could only thought, "Please somebody, anybody save me." Her prayers were answered. What are you all doing to this woman?" Grayfia slowly opened her eyes. She saw a tall man with a hooded cloak, standing in front of her, his back facing her. Who are you? Where did you come from?" said the lead devil in fear. "I asked you a question, vermin. What are you going to do with this woman?" asked the man with such confidence and command. She couldn't help but stare at the back of the man with curiosity. Who is this man? Where did he came from? And why does she sense a dragon within him? That's none of your business. Who are you anyway? I show he was cut off in mid-sentence when he saw the man suddenly kneeled in front of Grayfia and asked, "Are you okay, ma'am? Did they do this to you?" Grayfia stared at the man in front of her. She could only see his cerulean blue eyes and blonde-colored bangs framing his face, under that hood cloak. She could only nod, not finding the strength to answer him directly due to exhaustion. The blonde-headed man nodded at her before he added, "I understand. Wait here for a while, okay, miss? I'll deal with the pest first before I can take you away, alright?" Grayfia nodded once again before the blonde suddenly raised his hand and put it on her shoulder, giving it a squeeze. Grayfia felt her heart warmed a bit at the gesture, but she didn't give a thought about it. The man then stood up and turned on his heels to face the lead devil, face to face. "Alright, it's either we're doing this the easy way or the hard way. Easy way, you won't feel a thing when I end your lives here and now. While the hard way, I'll make sure to make your final minutes of your lives as painful as possible," said the cloak-hooded man. The devils blinked simultaneously before they laughed at the cloak-hooded man in front of them. Before the hooded man spoke again, "You have some guts, butting in on our business, asshole. I don't know if you could count, but we outnumber you 20-1. You won't stand a chance against us. The man was silent for a moment, before he raised his right hand forward and muttered the words the last thing the devils in front of him would hear. Shinra Tensei. And just like that, the lead devil, plus 5 or 6 of his friends, were suddenly launched outwards with such force that the bodies were so disfigured that they couldn't be identified when they landed. The remaining devils could only gape at the sheer power of the cloak-hooded man possessed. No one remotely should have that kind of power. Grayfia, on the other hand, was staring at the back of the blonde man with wide eyes and in surprise. Where did this man came from? Why didn't she know, or better yet, all of Thebdevilkind know of him? Surely, someone this powerful attracted the attention of the 4 Lucifers. But this was the first time she ever saw him and his power. The cloak-hooded man then turned to the remaining devils present before he said, burned to ashes. Amaterasu. And just like the first one, after he said the last words, the remaining devils suddenly caught on what seems to be black-colored flames. Flames that cannot be extinguished, no matter what you do to put it out. The remaining devils could only scream in agony, while rolling on the ground in hopes of extinguishing the fire. But to their shock and horror, not that you could see it, the flames could only keep burning until nothing was left. Grayfia didn't know what to say anymore. She didn't even know if she should thank the newcomer or be afraid of him. Thankfully, he was anything but a cruel and evil man. Sorry you had to see that. I just don't like men ganging up on women. Especially if the woman is as beautiful as you. The blonde paused for a moment before waving his hands frantically, saying, I didn't mean to say something like that. I mean you are beautiful. I mean ag. Never mind. Grayfia could only stare at him again with a faint blush, before chuckling at his antics. After a while, she regains again her composure before she said, It's all right. Thank you for the compliment though. The blonde man could only rub the back of his head sheepishly while laughing awkwardly, before offering a hand to help her up. She accepted the helping hand before she stood up and looked at the tall blonde man. She could only guess that he was standing at least an impressive height of 6 foot flat. She was knocked out of her musings when the blonde man said, My name's Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name? Grayfia stared at his eyes before she answered, My name is Grayfia Lucifuge. It's nice to meet you. Naruto smiled at her, even though she couldn't see it, before he said, It's nice to meet you as well, Grayfia. Grayfia nodded at him, before Naruto added, Come on, my camp is not far from here. Follow me. He then turned to his heels and walked a few steps before looking back at her. So, are you coming or what? Grayfia once again, for the nth time, stared at her savior. Is it really a good idea to come with this man? Come to think of it, now that she's basically free of her pursuers, there's nothing stopping her in going to the anti-Satan faction. But here, her blonde savior was offering her a place to stay. And for once, she couldn't help but follow him. She didn't know, in the near-distant future, that the blonde-haired man she has the opportunity to meet was the one who would change their life forever. Yes, I'm coming. Trees, grass, leaves, flowers. This is what Grayfia was seeing, and she was baffled by it. Why, you asked? Well, there wasn't a forest back then since the last time she checked. This was supposed to be a barren wasteland. It was devoid of any greenery since the Great War. How the hell did this forest? She was cut off of her musings when, if you're asking yourself on how come there's a forest here? Well, I'm the reason for it, said her blonde savior. Oh, right. Her savior, the mysterious blonde-hooded man. She couldn't help but be cautious around him. Sure, he saved her from a fate worse than death. But does his intention really pure? Does her savior really come for her help? For all she knows, he may be just like the ones who pursued her. She couldn't help but shiver at the thought. She was so deep in her musings that she didn't notice that they arrive at what seems to be a clearing of some sorts. She was then motioned to sit at one of the logs that were placed near a tent. Nodding at the gesture, she sat on one of the logs before a blanket was placed around her shoulder to cover her up from the growing cold air that was brushing at her being. Thank you, muttered Grayfia like a whisper. But her savior heard it, clear as day. Smiling under his hood, her savior then said, You know, Grayfia, you have a beautiful name. She couldn't help but smile a little at the compliment. Pure honesty laced in his voice. Looking up, she saw his face was still covered by his hood. She was consumed by her curiosity of her hooded savior, so she asked the question that was plaguing her mind. Naruto, was it? Can I see your face? Smiling at that, Naruto brought his hands up to his hood before he slowly pulled it back to reveal his face. He then offered a hand to her, to which she accepted before he took the hand and placed a kiss on her knuckles, and smiled. Yes, it's Naruto. Grayfia still stunned at what she was seeing, despite the kiss he placed on her knuckles. He was by far the most handsome man she has ever seen. Maybe can make Sir's Gremry a run for his money on the looks department. With the spiky, sun-kissed blonde hair, chiseled face, cerulean blue eyes that can get you lost when gazed upon. Not to mention the 3 whiskers like marks on each cheek that made him look like a fox. Wait, fox yukai? He may be a yukai, judging from his whiskers like marks. But he doesn't feel like a yukai. Naruto-san. May I ask, are you by chance a yukai? Asked Grayfia carefully, still wary of the blonde-haired unknown in front of her. Naruto raised an eyebrow before he answered. Yukai? What's a yukai? But to answer your question, I'm a human. Grayfia could only blink at his answer. Human? How could a human do such a feat? How could a human dispatch a squad of devils in a blink of an eye? How could a human be here at the underworld? And is that chakra? A human with chakra? Are you alright, Grayfia-san? Asked Naruto, seeing that she was staring at him like he had grown a second head. Grayfia blinked again before coughing at her hand to regain her stupor. Once done, she answered him, saying, I am alright, Naruto-san. It's just that you're the first human to ever set foot in the underworld, plus, I can feel chakra flowing in you. Well, I'm not your normal kind of human. I'm a special case, answered Naruto with a smile before his face changed into a serious expression, asking, if I may ask, why were those devils pursuing you? Did you escape or something? Not noticing the subtle change of topic, Grayfia could only shiver again at the thought of the event that happened earlier. Those eyes of her pursuers, she didn't want to be that helpless ever again. I was defecting. I found out what our leaders planned on doing with our race. They would sacrifice every devil, our every own life, just for the sake of continuing what our original leaders envisioned. I was a fool to follow them. Sir's was right, said Grayfia, clinging on the blanket like a lifeline. Naruto gritted his teeth on what he heard. God was right, this world was really in need of saving. Despite being a devil, they believe in peace. Releasing a tired sigh, Naruto continued, question, who's Sir's? Grayfia beamed at the name before she answered, Sir's Gremry, heir to the Gremry family. He's the leader of the anti-Satan faction, along with Seraphol Citra, Ajuka Astaroth, and Falbium Glaciolabilis. He believes that devils, angels, and fallen angels should coexist in order for us to have peace. If the war continues, he fears that we might as well go extinct. Naruto pondered on this new information. Anti-Satan faction. Sir's Gremry. This he could work with. His original plan was simple, storm the fortress, kill the guards, then face the leaders. But with this, the devils will be in good hands. Do they know you would defect, Grayfia? Asked Naruto. Grayfia raised one of her eyebrows before she answered, no. But he has been recruiting me for some time now. Then you know where they are now? Asked again Naruto to the silverette. Shrugging her shoulders, she answered, yes. I know where they are. Naruto nodded his head before he said, okay then. Tomorrow I'll accompany you to wherever they are. After what happened earlier, I'm pretty sure that they are still searching for you. Plus, you're hurt and exhausted. You need to rest while I heal you. Grayfia smiled a little before she nodded her head. Moving to seat next to her, Naruto proceeded to heal Grayfia's wounds using the mystical palm technique. After some time, Naruto finished healing her cuts and bruises before saying, there, you're all patched up. He then motioned her at the tent and added, use my tent, rest for a while. Once your reserves are back, we'll leave for the anti-Satan faction. Nodding her head, she walked inside the tent, but before she entered the tent, thank you, Naruto, you didn't have to do this for me, muttered Grayfia. Naruto looked at her for a second before he smiled. You're welcome, Grayfia. It's the least I can do. Giving him her best and realist smile to her savior, Grayfia retired for a while to rest. Seeing that she's finally resting, Naruto made some shadow clones to guard the perimeter before he leaned on one of the trees and closed his eyes to let sleep take him. Grayfia awoke from one of her best sleeps she had ever had. She felt recharged, complete even. Then the memories kicked in from the events that happened before she slept. She looked around and found out that she's still in the tent. Looking at her clothes, she sighed in relief to see that nothing was amiss. Walking out of her tent, she saw Naruto was seating at the middle of the clearing, clearly meditating by the looks of it. Walking towards his savior, Grayfia was about to greet him when she was startled by the sudden voice she heard coming from Naruto. Hello, Grayfia. I take it that your sleep was good? Taking a deep breath to regain her composure, she answered, yes, Naruto-san. The sleep was good. Suddenly, she felt an overwhelming feeling of warmth wash over her. She looked at the source and found out that it was coming from Naruto, who apparently was exhaling his breath. Standing up from his seating position, Naruto then faced Grayfia when suddenly she asked, "What was that?" Naruto rubbed the back of his sheepishly before he answered, "Sorry. I was meditating, and I subconsciously gathered natural energy around us. Had to release it." Grayfia could only gape at what she heard. A human. A human that can utilize senjutsu. Who the hell was this person? Not only that he has chakra, he could even gather natural energy. "Senjutsu, you can use senjutsu," muttered Grayfia, still staring at him with her mouth still agape. "You know senjutsu?" asked Naruto. Grayfia could only nod her head at his question. Naruto could only chuckle nervously. "Okay, I think I broke her." You did." "Both of you, shut up." Grayfia regained her composure before she asked, "Who are you really, Naruto-san?" Smiling at her, he gestured her to follow him before he answered, "I'll explain in due time, Grayfia. Right now, let's head for the anti-Satan faction base." Grayfia narrowed her eyes at him before she answered, "Fine. You'll explain it to me when we get there." "Yes, ma'am," Naruto said with a two-finger salute. To which Grayfia smiled at his antics. "Good. Now would you follow me please? It's a long walk ahead," said Grayfia before she walked past her savior. Naruto shook his head before he followed after her. In a room where only a single source of light was the only thing that was illuminating the room for the occupants, 4 individuals were having an emergency meeting. And by the looks of it, it wasn't good. The first person was a handsome man with a shoulder-length crimson-red hair and blue-green eyes, with an appearance of man in his early 20s. His name was Serzex Gremory, son of Ziaticus Gremory and Venelina Gremory, and heir to the Gremory family. Next is a beautiful woman in her late teens with black hair, tied into twin tails and purple eyes. Her name is Serafal Citri, heir to the Citri clan. Next is a bewitchingly beautiful and attractive young man appearing in his early 20s, with light blue eyes and green slicked back hair. His name is Ajuka Astaroth, heir of the Astaroth family. And last, but not the least, we have a tall man whose head is completely bald, has gray eyes, and appears to be in his early 20s. His name is Falbium Glagiolabilas, heir to the Glagiolabilas family. Not only these 4 are the strongest among anti-Satan faction, they are also the 4 leaders of the anti-Satan faction, with Serzex being the strongest among them all. "What are we going to do now, Serzex? Our line of defense is broken, our fortress is being sieged, and it's only a matter of time before they breach the main gate," explained Ajuka to Serzex. "I know, Ajuka. I know. We were caught off guard by their attack last night, and it left our forces in ruin," answered Serzex with a sigh. "To top it all off, we are outnumbered by a large margin. We can't face an army of 20,000 loyalists with our army of 5,000. It's suicide," said Falbium while leaning at one of the walls in the room. "Did we call any reinforcements?" asked Serafal while biting her thumbnail. "Yes, we did, but they are days away from here. They won't make it in time," answered Ajuka. "Then we need to hold our defense. We need to give everything we have, for us to survive this," said Serzex. "Then let's do it. Reinforce the walls and the main gate. We, at any circumstances, don't let the enemy breach that gate. If it comes to that, then we need to fight our way out to escape," said Ajuka while eyeing their fortress map for any weakness in their defense. "All right, now we." Serafal was cut off in mid-sentence when one of their subordinates suddenly entered the room frantically, saying, "The gate has been breached. The loyalist has entered the courtyard." "Shit, son of a bitch, damn it," said the 3 men, while Serafal narrowed her eyes. Serzex then suddenly barked his order, saying, "All right. Calm down. Gather every able body and meet us in the courtyard. Have the civilians use the escape tunnels, while we fight our way out of here. That'll serve as a distraction for the civilians to escape." "Sir, yes sir. It will be done," said the soldier before he turned on his heels and ran to fulfill his lord's order. Serzex looked amongst his friends before gained a serious expression. "Whatever happens, stick together. We'll survive this," Serzex said. The 3 friends nodded at Serzex before the latter walked out of the room, followed by his 3 friends into battle. They could only hope for a miracle to happen. Naruto and Grayfia walked for some time in the early hours in the morning until it was noon, stopping only when they needed to rest for a bit or take a water break. While they were at it, Naruto explained to her where he came from and why was he here while they were traveling. Naruto first started his tale at the Fourth Great Shinobi World War up to the sealing of the Jubi into himself, resulting in his untimely death. But instead of passing on to the afterlife, his soul was pulled by his ancestor, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. His ancestor then explained to him that he already fulfilled his prophecy in his old dimension, and now, there is a world in need of him. After some time, he agreed to his ancestor, and proceeded to make a new body for him, passed everything he knows to him as a gift, before transporting him here in the underworld. To his ire, she called bullshit on that. To which it earned a twitching eyebrow from Naruto. Can you blame her? For all she knows, it could be bullshit. Let me get this straight. You're a revived hero from your dimension that was entrusted a mission from your ancestor to go here and save it? Asked Grayfia, while still leading her blonde savior to the anti-Satan faction. Yup, said Naruto, popping the P at the end. And not only that, your remade body is much more durable and stronger, plus your ancestor bestowed upon you every jutsu he knows on each of the 5 elements in your dimension, including mastery on very affinity? Sounds about right, answered Naruto with a shrug of his shoulders. Plus, you have the eyes of the primordial god that grants you the visual prowess of 2 of the 3 great dojutsu in your dimension? Actually, make it 3. Just found out earlier that I can also use my eyes like the Byakugan, answered Naruto. Grayfia stopped walking before looking back to look at Naruto, saying, Byakugan? Naruto stopped also before answering, like I said, it's one of the 3 great dojutsus in my dimension. Byakugan, or all saying white eye, gives the user an almost 360 degrees diameter field of vision, with 1 blind spot at the back of the neck. The Byakugan also allows the user to extend his or her one's range of vision and see through solid objects. Grayfia suddenly stopped on her tracks before looking back to gaze upon him. You do know that you are overwhelmingly powerful, Naruto-san? Yes, I know, answered Naruto simply with a shrug of his shoulders. Well, it's a good thing that you grow up to be the man you are right now, said Grayfia with a smile. Why is that? Asked Naruto, genuinely curious on her answer. Because with great power comes with great responsibility. And as far as I can tell, you embody the word, responsible, answered Grayfia with a smile. Thank you. Gray Naruto suddenly stopped in mid-sentence and gained a serious look on his face when he felt an enormous amount of magic emanating from their destination. Grayfia noticed his sudden behavior change and asked, What is it, Naruto-san? But the blonde didn't answer her. Unknown to her, he was having a conversation with his 2 tenants inside of him. Kit, are you feeling that? Asked Kurama. Yes, Kurama. It feels like Naruto trailed off before his new partner added. Magic. Massive amounts of magic are being released. Not only that, but it's the power of destruction. The same power of destruction that one Surzek's Gremory wields, said Drake. Raising an eyebrow internally, he asked, And how do you know he's the one releasing it? I should know because I once fought him. He, alongside his devil kind, fallen angels, and with God and his angels, interrupted my battle with Albion, the vanishing dragon, my rival. In our anger for being interrupted, we attacked the 3 factions, resulting in our deaths and being turned into sacred gears by God, Drake answered. Naruto gained a deadpan expression before saying, You do know that you basically signed your own death warrants when you attacked them, right? Plus, if I recall correctly from the knowledge that God gave me, you both were so engrossed in your fight that you both failed to notice that you too were causing collateral damage. Drake could only chuckle sheepishly before answering, Oh, alright. Naruto shook his head internally before asking, Grayfia, are you well rested yet? His gaze still fixed ahead of them when suddenly, veins popped out from the side of his head, particularly from the side of his eyes, signifying his usage of his Byakugan. I am, Naruto-san. Is something wrong? You suddenly stopped in mid-sentence a while ago, asked again Grayfia. I'm afraid there is. Focusing on extending his field of vision, he finally saw what was happening with the anti-Satan faction. I think the anti-Satan faction is under attack. And judging from what I'm seeing right now, it's not going well for them, answered Naruto with narrowed eyes. Grayfia widened her eyes. Then let's get going then. We must help them, shouted Grayfia with determined eyes. I'm way ahead of you, Grayfia. Let's go, answered Naruto before he sprinted away with Grayfia, the latter hoping that it's not too late. Surzek and his friends, along with their army, was on their last legs. More than half of their forces were killed, but they managed to bring their enemies' numbers to a surprising half of their original number of loyalist forces. Surzek, along with the Juka, fought to the last man in the courtyard. while Serafal and Falbium were protecting the entrance to the escape tunnels. The said tunnels were now sealed so that the civilians weren't followed. Serafal and Falbium rendezvoused with Surzex and Ajuka after they sealed the tunnels off. Surzex, the tunnels are sealed and secured. We're the only ones left, shouted Serafal through the raging battle, while using her ice powers to impale any poor bastard who come across her. Good. We push on through the front gate. Make our retreat now. Stay close to me, shouted back Surzex before charging his power of destruction to full power before releasing it in front of him, rendering any poor soul that came into contact with it into dust. There. Follow me, ordered Surzex before he and his friends, along with the remaining forces they have, ran using the path Surzex made for them. Using her powers, Serafal used her ice-based magic to act as a wall to block out any loyalist forces to cut them off of their escape. With Ajuka, he used his immense demonic power to render any enemy devil that came across him into mincemeat, with Falbium doing the same. But not before breaking his enemies' bones into powder before destroying them completely using his powers. They were about to escape the one-sided battle when suddenly, their escape path was blocked by a legion of loyalist devils. They then were encircled by the remaining loyalist forces to render them trapped by their enemies. Shit! We're trapped. What do we do? Shouted Serafal, while using her powers overtime to help defend their comrades from overwhelming odds. We have no choice. Fight till the last man. If we're going to die, then let me tell you three that it's been an honor fighting alongside my friends, shouted back Surzex, before unleashing his powers to its fullest and releasing it onto their enemies. Ajuka could only smile before he too charged his immense demonic power before forming it into his hands and engaging into a full-on close-quarter combat, obliterating any body part it came into contact with. Falbium smirked before he then charged at the enemy with calculating movements, demolishing any opposition in his way. Serafal could only smile at her friends before using her powers into its fullest potential. Concentrating on her powers, she conjured a dragon that's made of ice before willing it to attack the opposing devils. The battle went on, and the anti-Satan faction was finally gaining ground, reducing their enemies' number more and more. But like our dear friend, Murphy said, anything that can go wrong, will go wrong. Surzex, look out! Shouted Ajuka to his best friend. Surzex was too late when he was suddenly blindsided by an enemy devil loyalist. Tumbling on the ground, Surzex managed to pry himself away from his attacker and was about to retaliate when an ice spike went through the would-be attacker's head. Surzex, are you alright? Asked Serafal before slamming her hand on the ground, conjuring up ice spikes that spread outward, killing some loyalist devils that didn't have the time to dodge the attack. Surzex nodded to Serafal before he stood up from his crouching position. He winced at the sudden pain he felt before checking the side where his assailant managed to tackle him. He found a dagger, lodged in his side. Serafal widened her eyes before Surzex removed the lodged dagger, not before wincing again in pain in removing the said dagger. Son of a bitch! That hurt. Here, let me stop the bleeding, said Serafal before using her ice magic to freeze the stab wound. Surzex gritted his teeth in pain again. That really fucking hurt. Removing her hand from his wound, she nodded at her work before saying, There, all done. Thank you, Serafal-chan, said Surzex before standing up, albeit slowly. His two other friends regrouped with them before Ajuka suddenly spoke. Surzex, are you alright? Surzex looked at his best friend before answering, Yes, I'm fine, Ajuka. What's the situation? Ajuka looked at him grimly before answering, To be honest, we're practically making our last stand. Surzex could only stare at him for a minute before shifting his gaze around them. He saw the loyalist devils were closing in around their position, and judging from the number of magic circles that were conjured up and pointed right at them, their time is almost up. Closing his eyes and releasing a tired sigh, he said, All right then. If we're going down, we're taking a lot of them with us. Ajuka, Serafal, and Falbium could only nod at him before they formed a circle, and all of them were back to back from each other. Each one of them charged up their demonic powers and was about to release it to attack the loyalist devils when suddenly ice spikes sprouted around them, impaling many loyalist devils from the sudden surprise attack. Serafal-chan. Did you do that? Asked Surzex. No, it wasn't me, answered Serafal, still baffled by the sudden ice attack. Then who was it? Asked Falbium before they heard a womanly voice spoke from above them. Surzex-sama, Serafal-sama, Ajuka-sama, and Falbium-sama. Are you all alright? Asked the unknown woman. Grayfia-chan, said Surzex, recognizing the newcomer. To which the other three recognized as well. Not that I'm not glad that you're here and all. But why you're here? Did Rias of them sent you? Asked Surzex. Dropping down from above them, she landed in front of Surzex before answering, No, Surzex-sama. I left the House of Lucifer after finding out on my own the truth and outcome of this war. Surzex smiled at her before saying, I'm happy that you are finally with us, Grayfia-chan. Grayfia smiled a little at him before he added, but I'm afraid that we still have loyalist scum to deal with. Grayfia's smile turned to a full-blown smirk, to which Surzex, Serafal, Ajuka, and Falbium noticed, before she spoke, Do not worry. I'm not the only one who came. Serafal raised one of her eyebrows before she said, Then where is your calm? She was cut off in mid-sentence when she saw one of the loyalist devils got close and was about to stab Grayfia from behind. Look out! Shouted Serafal. Time seemed to slow down for the four friends. They were all certain that the silver-haired woman was going to die, if they didn't stop the loyalist attacker. To their surprise, the Silverette still has her smirk plastered on her face, despite the incoming attack on her person. Surzex was about to attack the loyalist who was about to stab Grayfia when suddenly Surzex, Serafal, Ajuka, and Falbium widened their eyes when a cloaked figure suddenly appeared in front of the would-be attacker and grabbed the attacker's hand in a vice-like grip. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The cloaked figure then proceeded to crush the offender's hand, making the loyalist drop his knife. He then let go of the crushed hand before using his other hand to bury it to the devil's stomach. If you look closely, you could see the hand threatening to emerge from the other side of the devil's back. He removed his buried hand before grabbing the back of the devil's head and slamming it on the ground, burying the head, along with half of the devil's body with such force that the ground that the head was slammed into broke apart, forming wide cracks all around from the epicenter and forming one big dust cloud. All in all of this was done in mere seconds, earning him wide eyes and jaw drops from the four leaders of the anti-Satan faction, and also with Grayfia. Removing his now bloodied hand from the, literally, man-made crater, the cloaked figure asked, Are you alright, Grayfia? While eyeing the surrounding enemies one by one. Glancing at her savior, she answered, I'm alright, Naruto-san. She looked at the three of the four leaders of the anti-Satan faction, before her eyes locked onto Surzex. Specifically, the wound that was frozen on his side. Though one of the leaders of the anti-Satan faction is wounded, added Grayfia. The four future mouths of the underworld raised their eyebrows. Who is this Naruto? What house is he from? Is he even friendly? Is he really here to help them? Why can't they read his power, or even his demonic energy? Many questions were popping out of their heads, especially Ajuka. But for Surzex, the only question that's circling in his head is, why is he with Grayfia? The cloaked figure nodded his head before he parted his cloak to unsheath what seems to be a chikuto from his back and holding it in a reverse grip. Assuming his stance, he spoke, Understood. Get them out of here, along with the rest of the rebels, Grayfia. I'll hold them off while you all escape. He was about to spring into action when one of the leaders suddenly shouted, Are you insane? There's still thousands of them here. How in seven hells are you going to accomplish that? Naruto glanced at the one who spoke, and he found out that the one who spoke was a beautiful woman, easily on par on the looks department against Grayfia. Instead of the cloaked stranger answering, it was the Silverette who answered for him. Do not worry, Serafal-sama. She glanced again at her savior, smiling a bit. She added, not noticing the narrowed eyes of Surzex when she smiled a bit, he is well capable of. Naruto nodded at Grayfia before he shifted his gaze back to the loyalist devils. Kurama, we're up. Drake, you'll sit this one out. Don't want them to find out about you being my sacred gear yet. Drake nodded. I understand, partner. You still haven't finished training also, using the boosted gear. Before Kurama answered, are we going to use our new form? Yup. This would be a perfect opportunity to try out our new cloak, Kurama said Naruto while grinning. Kurama also grinned before answering, well then, let's do this, Naruto. Naruto internally nodded to his new partner before closing his eyes. Feeling his chakra in sync with Kurama, Naruto started gathering nature energy around him. Surzex, Serafal, Ajuka, Falbium, and even Grayfia once again widened her eyes at the feeling they are experiencing, as well as what they are seeing as well. As for the fighting around them, they too stopped what they were doing, in favor of looking at the cloaked figure and the power he was releasing in the air. Naruto gained a dark crimson aura that buckled the ground where he stood. The aura then formed what seems to be 10 tails of a fox, swaying back and forth lazily. Removing his hood with one hand, everyone saw that his hair has same color just like his aura and was standing end to end. The hair also looks to be like it has a mind of its own, dancing like the fire from a bonfire in a camp. One, his facial features on the other hand, was different. In the eyes of Grayfia, that is. His whisker-like marks looks to be more defined than ever. His canines sharpened and elongated enough that it poked out from his mouth. When he opened his eyes changed from cerulean blue to crimson red, while his pupils were changed into slits. It can't be this feeling senjutsu, that's senjutsu, but how? Said Ajuka. Still not believing what he's seeing, let alone sensing the power of the unknown person was releasing in front of them. Senjutsu? But I thought senjutsu could only be used by yokais. And by the looks of him, he is no yokai, shouted Seraphol. Well, he can use it, said Falbium. He too was gaping like a fish. Surzex could only gape as well, and couldn't help but wonder, who the hell is this guy? Looking over his shoulders, he looked at the 4 leaders before at Grayfia, nodding at her, being the silent signal that she should get them out of there. Grayfia understood what her savior wanted her to do before she nodded back him. Returning his gaze at his opponents, Naruto bent his knees forward, before he suddenly disappeared from his position with the air where he stood imploded and the ground disintegrated. In a straight line, Naruto moved past them at lightning speed before the bodies he went through suddenly collapsed to the ground, dead, with their heads severed from their shoulders. Standing up from his crouched position, Naruto disregarded the 5 devils, who were about to use him as a human pincushion, much to the glee of the would-be attackers. To their surprise, their weapons phased through their opponent, and out of the 5 devils, 3 lived, while the other 2 died from each other's sword strike. Naruto inwardly smirked before looking at the remaining 3 out of 5 devils who attacked him. Now I know why Obito loved using this ability. Before backhanding his first target, sending the poor devil through their own ranks with a shattered jaw, with the head looking backward. Disappearing from their view, Naruto reappeared behind the 2 devils before grabbing both of their heads and used the human path ability to yank the soul out of the 2 devils from their body, storing them within the King of Hell and effectively killing them. Using again his intangibility technique, Naruto phased through some enemy magic attacks before disappearing from where he stood and reappearing on his next target. Caught off guard of the sudden appearance of the one-man army killer, Naruto bisected the surprised devil diagonally before dodging left from an enemy magic attack. Bending his knees, Naruto launched himself again at the loyalist devils, bisecting, disabling, or the occasional maiming of said devils. While this was going, the 4 soon-to-be Maos could only watch with their mouths still hung ajar. Such power, said Surzex, while looking at the Karna. No, a massacre of one man was doing to an army of supposed trained devil soldiers. I know why you mean, said Ajuka, while Seraphol and Falbium could only nod as their answer. The 4 soon-to-be Maos suddenly heard a cough from the side, making them look at the source, Surzex-sama, Seraphol-sama, Ajuka-sama, and Falbium-sama. If you all would be so kind, let us be off. I have the utmost trust that Naruto-san can hold them off, while we escape. The 4 of them looked at one another before nodding at the same time. They gathered what remains of their forces at their location before issuing the order to retreat. Some were glad that they could finally escape, while the others were reluctant to leave, knowing that they can win with the cloaked man's help. Grayfia lead the group out of the fighting while using her powers to kill any loyalist devils that stands in their way of escape. Surzex and Ajuka formed up on Grayfia's side and started helping her with the job of clearing the way of enemies. While this was going, Seraphol and Falbium was ushering their comrades to follow Grayfia, Surzex, and Ajuka. Once all of their forces are following their friends and the maid, both Seraphol and Falbium followed after them. The loyalist devils spotted the retreating traitors and proceeded to try and cut them off from the leading group. Seraphol was caught off guard by a stray enemy spell that erected a stone wall in front of her, effectively isolating her from the group. Falbium, who was the closest to Seraphol, was about to assist her, was suddenly cut off as well by overwhelming odds. Seraphol saw this and cursed under her breath that she was cut off by any means of escape. Looking from side to side, she saw that she was outnumbered 100 to 1, and by the looks of her would-be attackers, she saw the lust-filled look on their eyes and was ready to overpower her in sheer numbers. She was about to attack them when suddenly, she saw that her would-be attackers' looks turned from lust into horror, and then she felt an overwhelming feeling of warmth and comfort behind her. Like she felt that nothing will happen to her at that moment. Looking over to her shoulder, she saw the towering form of the guy that was with Grayfia, standing right behind her and glaring daggers at her would-be attackers. Are you okay? Did they do anything to you? Asked the cloaked blonde man. Feeling nervous all of a sudden, Seraphol answered, Why yes, I'm fine. Glancing at her, he nodded before returning his gaze back at the enemy. What's your name, miss? Seraphol looked at him again but now with a smile and answered, As Seraphol Citri. And why you are? Naruto walked past her while he answered, Naruto Uzumaki. It's nice meeting you, Seraphol. Now I would love to get to know you and the others more, but you will have to excuse me. I have pests to deal with. And with that, all hell broke loose. Naruto charged in and proceeded to beat them all 6 ways to Sunday. To say Sarah Fall was impressed was an understatement. She saw that Naruto not only did break their bones into tiny pieces, he made sure that they wouldn't use it the same way the said limb what it's supposed to do. Whenever a punch, a kick, a sword, a swipe, or even a tackle, Naruto would counter, and then proceed to disable them with extreme prejudice. One devil was unlucky enough to overextended his arm reach when he tried to stab Naruto, but Naruto capitalized on this and proceeded to disarm him, grabbed his wrist, extended his arm, and then uppercut the extended arm at the elbow, dislocating the forearm from the elbow before hitting the shoulder with enough force that dislocated it as well, rendering the whole arm useless. That said devil was one of the lucky ones, mind you. The others? Well, broken necks, shattered ribs, spine, and some skulls. Courtesy of a senjutsu-powered punch that caved one of the devil's skull in. After a one-sided fight that lasted for about 3 minutes or so, Naruto proceeded to walk back to Sarah Fall, who was gaping at the one-sided beatdown that Naruto gave to the loyalist devils. Naruto stood in front of Sarah Fall before he said, "You should go now, Sarah Fall. I've cleared the way for you." Sarah Fall looked at Naruto, then at the wailing loyalist, then back at him. "All right." While Sarah Fall hightailed out of there, Naruto looked back at the remaining loyalist force before positioning himself between the anti-Satan faction and the loyalist devils. Channeling his chakra to full power, buckling the ground from the sheer power he was releasing before muttering, "Senpo, Doton Garaku." With that, the space in front of Naruto suddenly formed a large fissure that expanded horizontally for miles on end, effectively cutting off the loyalist and the anti-Satan faction and making them retreat due to the power they felt on the attack. While this was going, Surzex and the others was looking at him from the distance, and for the last time, they couldn't hold their jaws from dropping to the ground. Even Grayfia was stunned by the sheer power that Naruto was showcasing. "As such power to think he is just a human," said Surzex. "Grayfia-san, you really are lucky that he found you when you finally decided to defect to us," said Ijuka, still having trouble believing what he was seeing. "That I am, Ijuka-sama. That I am," answered Grayfia, while a minuscule smile slowly etched on her lips of the memory of Naruto saving her. Surzex saw the smile and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. "Did you see how he disposed of the loyalist who was about to attack Sarah Fall? That feat alone is a major plus in my book," said Falbium, smiling at the lone human who stood at overwhelming odds like they don't even stand a chance against him. "Also, for a human, he looks kinda handsome," said Sarah Fall, looking also at her savior who was walking back at their direction with his chakra cloak deactivated. Hearing this, Grayfia couldn't help but frown at Sarah Fall's remarks against her blonde savior. "Look, here he comes," said Ijuka, who proceeded to walk forward to meet their savior. Seeing this, Sarah Fall, Surzex, Falbium, and Grayfia followed after Ijuka, who was now conversing with the blonde human. Walking up to them, Sarah Fall couldn't help but mutter, "Did I say handsome? I meant drop-dead gorgeous. He's handsome than you, Surzex Stan." The eyes of Surzex and Grayfia were twitching uncontrollably, but with different reasons. "Oh, shut up, Saratan," muttered Surzex while Grayfia glared at Sarah Fall. Naruto and Ijuka shifted their eyes to the approaching group with latter saying, "Ah, good. Everyone's here. I would like you all to meet our newest ally for our cause." Surzex and the others gave their undivided attention. Even though Sarah Fall and Grayfia already know his name, they nonetheless listened to his introduction. Naruto looked at the persons or devils in front of him, depending on who you are asking, and said, "Hello, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm the Nidaime Rakudo Sannin." "Hello, Naruto-san. I'm Falbium Asmodeus. It's nice to finally meet you," said Falbium with a smile. "Likewise, Falbium-san," answered Naruto also with a smile. "And I'm Surzex Gremry," said Surzex with a smile, while offering his hand to Naruto. Naruto accepted the handshake and shook his hand with a strong grip. "Hello, Surzex-san." Releasing his grip to his hands, Naruto looked at Sarah Fall with a nod, saying, "Sarah Fall." "Naruto-san," answered Sarah Fall with a sweet smile. Perhaps a little too sweet. Naruto then looked at Grayfia with a smile and said, "Grayfia." "Hello, Naruto-san," answered Grayfia with a smile. To which Surzex narrowed again his eyes. "Why is it she keeps on smiling to him?" thought Surzex. Naruto then looked at Ijuka and said, "I know you all have questions for me, and I will answer them truthfully with the best of my ability. But we must find shelter. I'm guessing that the castle that the loyalist has laid siege isn't the only one you got, am I right?" "Correct, Naruto-san. That castle isn't the only one we have. If you would follow us, we'll lead you to our next hideout," answered Ajuka. Alright then, lead the way, said Naruto with a smile before looking at Grayfia for a second, and then proceeded to follow Ajuka and the rest of their army. Naide Merkuto Senin? What the hell is that? Said Surzex while following the blonde human and his friend. Naruto-san will explain himself, Surzex-sama, when we arrive at our destination, said Grayfia in her neutral tone with her stoic face. Right. You already know this, don't you, Grayfia-chan? Asked Surzex. Yes, but not all of it. He promised to explain it in detail when he finally met all of you, Surzex-sama answered Grayfia. Okay, Grayfia-chan, said Surzex, before adding, do you trust him? Grayfia looked at Surzex in the eye and said, yes, Surzex-sama. Surzex could only nod and walked fast to catch up with his friend. Seeing that they were alone now, Serafal then said, so how did he save you? Grayfia could only smile and said, like a knight in shining armor, before she walked up to Naruto and positioned herself beside him. Serafal could only pout at her before moving to the other side of Naruto in hopes of getting to know the blonde more than Grayfia. 6 months. 6 months have passed since the day Naruto arrived at the world that God had sent him. 6 months have passed since Naruto and the 4 Maos had met each other. And 6 months have passed since Naruto had saved them from a surprise attack from the loyalist devils. Since the months he has been here in this new world, Naruto has been training himself past his limits. With the help of his shadow clones, he has finally mastered his newfound strength and powers he got from Kurama, the new Jubi, including his dojutsus and techniques in every element. He has also mastered his sacred gear, the boosted gear. With the help of Drake, Naruto can now access his balance breaker, the Welsh Dragon balance breaker, with no difficulties whatsoever. The only thing that he didn't try out for himself was his Juggernaut drive, since he has no intention as of now to announce to the whole underworld that he is the new wielder of the boosted gear. Now we found our soon-to-be Maos bleeding, bruised, and exhausted from a one-sided beatdown from their taskmaster. And apparently, their taskmaster isn't done with them yet. God damn it! Ajuka! Any plans in taking him down? Said Surzex before dodging a slab of rock and earth that nearly got him from his taskmaster. Yes. Dodge. Just fucking dodge. And hope that we can survive this, answered Ajuka before ducking from a kick that went over his head, missing him by mere centimeters. This is getting ridiculous. It's been Serafal didn't get to finish her sentence when a punch suddenly found her solar plexus before a kick landed on her face with enough force that her body was thrown towards her 2 friends that knocked them down on the ground. Serafal, are you alright? Shouted Falbium before he was blindsided by a lightning-powered lariat that sent him onto the ground before his attacker proceeded in kicking him at the side that sent him to his 3 friends that was slowly getting up from their one-sided beatings. Their taskmaster? Is none other than Naruto Uzumaki, who was grinning ear to ear while walking up to them slowly. Hey Naruto. Come on, man, it's been 3 hours since we started our 4-on-1 spar. We're running on fumes here, said Surzex pleadingly while sweating furiously on what their taskmaster plans on doing to them. Naruto stopped walking. Raising an eyebrow, he answered the redhead, saying, your point being? With his answer, Ajuka, in a blink of an eye, stood up with a tick mark on his head before answering their blonde sensei, our point being, are you trying to get us killed? Surzex paled before muttering, oh shit. Realizing what he had done, Ajuka paled also before taking small steps back, muttering, I'm sorry. Naruto cracked his knuckles before saying, it's too late for that now, Ajuka. The blonde sensei then bent his knees before adding, now, come here. After an hour or so, 4 beaten bodies were found in the infirmary of the anti-Satan faction, with their taskmaster whistling a happy tune while walking away from the said infirmary, with both of his hands on the back of his head. If you're wondering why they were beaten half to death by their sensei. Well, it's because they asked the blonde shinobi to train them. They didn't know that the kind-hearted, blonde-haired boy, no man, that he is one sadistic son of a beep. Ever since the day they saw Naruto fought off an army of evils, they asked him almost every day to train them. At first, he wasn't sure if they needed training. Knowing that they were the leaders of a faction that opposed the current rulers, he assumed that they were already powerful devils. Plus, the number of supporters they have, gave him more reason that they didn't need any more training. But Grayfia told him that she was once in a battle when she saw the 4 Maos fought against Surzex and the others when she was still on the loyalist side. She recalled that, if it wasn't for Surzex using his power of destruction, they would have perished in battle. After hearing what Grayfia had said, Naruto accepted their request, but not before telling them that he would have them pass their limits, and they wouldn't dare question his methods in reaching that goal. Unfortunately for them, they didn't know that Naruto was the meaning of the word taskmaster. Speaking of Grayfia, Naruto and Grayfia's friendship has grown tremendously since the past 6 months. The both of them could be seen always talking to each other, sparring with one another, or in some cases, both were eating lunch or dinner together. Sometimes having breakfast together. Some would say they are already a couple. Some would say that they're just close friends. But one red-head and one raven-headed woman was having none of it. Though with different reasons. The redhead was jealous. Jealous that their blonde-haired sensei was so close with the silverette to the point that they seemed to be inseparable. With one looking for the other always when one is missing. He didn't hate his blonde-haired sensei, but he couldn't help but be jealous that when he finally found the woman that could make his heart skip a beat and possibly, his wife someday. The same woman who he felt at some point in this war, reciprocated what he was feeling for her, but had finally found what she was looking for. His sensei. He was happy for them both, mind you. Heck, he already considers his blonde-haired sensei one of his best friend, next to Ajuka. Still, the redhead still wishes that he was the one that the silverette wants. Oh well. Maybe she has a sister that he didn't know about. Maybe he should ask her sometimes about that. The ravenet, however, was feeling the opposite of the redhead. Well, maybe in some ways that is. Yes, she's also jealous. But not with the blonde, oh no. She's jealous with the silverette. She wishes she was the one that the blonde was paying attention to. She wishes that she was the one that he was having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the blonde. That was the only thing she has in common with the redhead was feeling towards the two. The rest? Well, she was pitying the silverette. Why, you may ask? For starters, the blonde was also the meaning of the word, dense. She could see, clear as day, that the silverette has totally fallen for their blonde-haired sensei. She's practically hanging out with him every single day, and their blonde-haired sensei couldn't even take a hint. Sure, he always said that they were just friends hanging out. But please. Even a toddler could see that Grayfia has totally been smitten by him. And yet the blonde sees it as a sign of close friendship between them. She can't blame Grayfia, though. Power attracts devils. The more you're powerful, the more attention you would garner from the devil populace. And she was one of that populaces. She can't give up now. Oh no. If she must fight the silverette over their sensei, then bring it. Naruto was walking towards his room, still whistling a happy tune, when a familiar silver-headed woman suddenly walked beside him, hands in front of her, wearing a dark blue, skin-tight bodysuit that hugged her figure so well that every devil that laid their eyes upon her followed her. Not even looking at his companion, Naruto asked with a smile, "Hey, Grayfia. How was your mission?" Grayfia moved a little bit closer to the blonde before answering, "Went well for the most part. We got caught by an ambush when we were pulling out." Stopping on their tracks, Naruto turned his body to the side to look at her from head to toe, before Naruto asked again, "Are you alright? Were you hurt?" Looking at his eyes, Grayfia gave him a small smile before answering, "I'm fine, Naruto-san. Not a scratch on me." Naruto rolled his eyes before saying, "Come on, Grayfia. What did I tell you about those honorifics? And besides, we're both alone here." Shaking her head, Grayfia answered with a smile, "Fine, Naruto. There. Happy?" Naruto smiled also before saying yes. Very. They resumed their trek to Naruto's room before Naruto added, "Up until now, it still bothers me that you always keep that stoic face of yours when there are other people around." Looking at his peripheral vision, Naruto added again with a smile, "You should always smile, Grayfia. It suits you perfectly." Grayfia couldn't help but turn her head to the side to hide her growing blush at the blonde's remarks towards her. During the months they have spent together since his arrival on their world, Naruto has been steadily breaking her visage of her stoic personality. Never had a person or devil could break her ever-perfect stoic persona. It was practically shoved and embedded inside of her when she was young and training to be the maid of the mouse. And yet when Naruto arrived, her once impenetrable visage was taking damage every time she spent with the blonde. It was one of the reasons why she was so interested with him. The other reasons? He was very kind, sweet, and caring. Never did he turn down a devil who needs help. Especially when they occasionally came across homeless people who were affected by the Civil War. He would go out of his way to help them in any means he could. He would use his powers to create housing for them, grow food for them. Heck, even the soldiers look up to him because of how he treats them. No soldier was left behind, even the dead. He would personally walk back to the battlefield to retrieve the fallen soldiers and walk back like nothing has happened. And when he returns, he would make it to a point that they were buried with honors. Now, she was seeing the blonde more than interest in her eyes. She was seeing the blonde more than she sees Sirzek 6 months ago. The problem is, does the blonde feel the same way about her? Sure, he was worried always for her, care for her when she was with him. But he doesn't give any indication that he likes her also. Maybe he was shy. Or afraid of what she would say to him when he finally tells her about his feelings? Possibly towards her? So many questions, and yet she was afraid also of what he would say to her. Afraid that he doesn't like her the way she likes him. Maybe after the war they could talk about this. And hope that the blonde likes her. Besides, she has a reputation to uphold. Only with Naruto that she will allow herself to be open. When they aren't alone, she's back to be her stoic maid personality. Back to their conversation, Grayfia answered him, saying, I have a reputation to uphold. Though thank you for the compliment. And you're the only one who's allowed to see me like this, muttering the last part to herself. Naruto shrugged his shoulders before answering, hey, just saying. After a few minutes of walking, the both of them arrived at the blonde's room, before the latter added, so, dinner later tonight? My treat for your mission success? Grayfia smiled brightly at him before answering, sure, Naruto. Same time? Naruto nodded his head before saying yes, same time. The Silverette nodded her head before answering, okay. See you later, Naruto. Yeah, see you, said Naruto, before entering his room to take a bath and maybe take a nap before their dinner. After waking up from his nap, Naruto met up with Grayfia at exactly 7 p.m. at her room, with the both of them wearing their casual clothes. With Naruto, he was wearing an orange zip-up long sleeves turtleneck shirt, with the zipper reaching up to his neckline, with black trimmings on the ends of the sleeves and shirt. Black pants that reached past his knee, that was paired with black sandals that reached up to his pants. With Grayfia, she was wearing a white form-fitting v-neck shirt that left a sizable amount of cleavage for anyone, mostly for Naruto, to see, paired with a dark blue jacket. Black skin-tight pants that accented her hips and legs really well, and white stilettos. Walking out of their base, Naruto led Grayfia to one of their favorite restaurants in town. The two of them proceeded to order their chosen food after they were seated at their reserved table, courtesy of Naruto. The food, as always, was delicious. Paired with great company, good wine, and funny stories, safe to say, the pair's night was just only starting. Heard that you beat your students again to an inch of their life again, said Grayfia after drinking her wine with a smile. Naruto chuckled before taking a sip from his wine as well before answering, I wouldn't say an inch of their life seeing that she has one of her eyebrows raised. Naruto added, alright, fine. They were beaten to an inch of their life, but that was at the beginning. I swear! Grayfia gave him a deadpan stare before answering, right. Just what I thought. And you healed them a while ago when you brought them to the infirmary, correct? Naruto slumped his shoulders, looking down before answering, yes, looking back up to her, he added, you know, it still surprises me that you know what I did and what I will do. A faint blush formed on her cheeks, but she beat it back down before smiling at him and answered, I just know you that well, Naruto. Naruto chuckled before smiling at her and said that you do. Then, a waiter came with desserts. Not just any desserts, but it was Grayfia's favorite dessert, tiramisu. To which Grayfia's eyes widened a bit before Naruto added with a heartwarming smile, and just like you, I just know you that well too, Grayfia. Grayfia's cheeks colored pink when she saw that smile of his. Rather than controlling the heat that was forming on her face, she let it form. She took a bite of her favorite dessert, and couldn't help but sigh in contentment, savoring the flavor that was the food of the gods. To her at least. Naruto chuckled before taking a bite of his slice of tiramisu also. He was about to talk again to Grayfia when two soldiers walked up to them and spoke. Naruto-sama, Grayfia-sama. Sirzek-sama request your presences immediately. Naruto and Grayfia nodded their heads before Naruto paid for their meal and followed the two soldiers back to their base. While on their way, Naruto asked the two soldiers, so, any of you know what's going on? The soldier on the left answered, I believe we have a new mission, Naruto-sama. Sirzek-sama is gathering the generals and leaders of their battalion. Naruto nodded before looking at Grayfia, saying, it looks like we're mobilizing again. Maybe I should talk to Sirzek about not letting you come to this mission. You just came back from one. Grayfia smiled at him, feeling a bit bold. Grayfia grabbed right arm with the two of her hands, giving them a reassuring squeeze, before saying, I'm fine, Naruto. Honest. I have plenty of rest since I came back from my mission. Naruto sighed tiredly before answering, fine. Come on, let's get this over with. Grayfia nodded, letting her hands linger on his arm a bit longer before letting go. After a few more minutes of walking, Naruto and Grayfia arrived at the war room of their base. There they find Surzex already waiting for them, along with Serafal, Ajuka, and Falbium. The others were the generals of the army who are also waiting for them. Judging by the number of seats that are vacant, it seems that they were the final pair that they were waiting for. "Sorry we're late, everybody," announced Naruto, before taking his seat at the table, with Grayfia sitting beside him on his right. "It's okay, Naruto. And sorry for ruining your dinner with Grayfia," said Surzex, before looking at the people on the table before adding, "Now that we're all here, I would like everybody's attention, please." Every head on the table looked at Surzex before the latter explained, 2 hours ago, our spy from the Loyalist faction came back with an information that could win us the war. Gesturing at the map on the table, Surzex pointed out, "As you can see, one of these sectors houses the main supply lines depot of the Loyalist faction." A collective gasp was heard before murmurings started between themselves. Raising one hand to gain their attention again, Surzex continued, "The other is the main base of operations of the Loyalist army." One general suddenly spoke, "If the intel is correct, then like you said, Surzex-sama, we could finally end this civil war once and for all." Surzex nodded before gesturing for Ajuka to take the lead. "You're right, General. Now, we believe that the main base is located right here on this sector," pointing at the one on the right of the 2 highlighted sectors. "Since this is the main base of the Loyalist army, we expect heavy resistance from the army station there." Looking at Naruto, Ajuka added, "As for who is leading the party that will attack this base, it will be you, Naruto." Naruto nodded his head in acknowledgement before Ajuka added, "Since you're the one leading, you get to choose how many men and women you need for this operation." Naruto once again nodded his head before Ajuka pointed on the left of the highlighted sector, "Since this is a sabotage mission." Looking at Grayfia, Ajuka added, "Grayfia, you and your men will raid the supply depot, along with Surzex and Falbium." Grayfia nodded her head before Ajuka looked back to his audience, "If we play this right, we can finally storm the Mao's palace and end this pointless war." Nodding to Surzex, Ajuka took a step back to let Surzex take his place. "Before I end this meeting, any questions?" One general raised his hand before Surzex nodded to let him speak. "If I may, Surzex-sama. May I request to accompany Naruto-sama on his mission to take the Loyalists' main base?" Surzex smiled at the general before answering, "If it's up to me, yes you may. But I'm not the one you should be asking that question." The general shifted his gaze to Naruto before he bowed and said, "If you would have me, Naruto-sama, it would be an honor to fight alongside with you." Before Naruto could even answer, 2 more generals stood up before bowing to Naruto and said, "If you would have us as well, Naruto-sama, we will be with you until the end." Naruto shook his head before he smiled to them and answered, "The honor is mine, generals. And please, no bowing." The 3 generals straightened themselves up, before nodding to the blonde as their thanks. Surzex smiled at his sensei, before looking to his audience and said, "This meeting is adjourned, and good luck to us all." Taking it as their signal to leave, the generals filed out of the room, leaving the 4 soon-to-be Maos, Grayfia, and Naruto. "So, what about you two? Are you both going to stay here at the base?" asked Naruto, looking at both Serafal and Ajuka. Ajuka smiled at his sensei before answering, "Yes, Naruto. Me and Serafal will hold the fort while you 3 go down and dirty to win us our victory." Naruto chuckled before nodding his head to Ajuka and then looked at Surzex, saying, "Despite your mission will be a walk in the park with you 3 on it." Looking at Falbium and Grayfia, with the latter locking eyes with him, Naruto added, "Please be careful. And watch each other's backs, got it?" Surzex smiled at his blonde sensei and best friend, before answering, "We will, Naruto." A smirk formed on his face before adding, "Besides, with the training you have been giving us since the day we asked for it, I doubt there's anything that could surprise us." Shaking his head, Naruto looked at Serafal and said with a mischievous grin, "And Serafal, please behave while we're gone." Serafal puffed her cheeks before answering in whining tone, "Mao Narutan." The 4 guys chuckled while Grayfia still has her stoic face on full display. "Just kidding, Serafal," said Naruto before patting her on the head, to which Serafal blushed slightly on the sudden contact towards her. Looking at the others, he added, "All right, come on guys. Let's get ready for our mission." Opening the door for them, Naruto let the 4 friends out first before gesturing Grayfia to go next. "After you, my lady." Grayfia gave him a small smile before answering, Era, such manners." Walking out of the room, Naruto followed Grayfia out before closing the door. Naruto and Grayfia walked back to their room in relative silence. Arriving at the latter's room, Grayfia was about to enter her room when the blonde suddenly spoke, "Please take care of yourself out there, okay?" Looking back at her companion, Grayfia saw the concern and worry on his eyes that made her heart beat faster. I will, Naruto, you too, okay? Naruto smiled at her warmly before answering, I will. Nodding her head, Grayfia turned on her heels before entering her room and closed the door. Hearing that Naruto walked back to his room, Grayfia muttered to herself, please, be safe and come back to me. With Naruto. After mobilizing their forces, Naruto and the three generals head for their target, the Loyalists' main base of operation. While a forward operation base was being erected, Naruto made a few clones to scout on ahead of the base to assess their strength. To his surprise, it wasn't that defended like he assumed it to be. Thinking that maybe they were just lax in their defense, Naruto pushed through with their attack. Looking at the three generals, Naruto asked, so, you guys ready? Before looking at the walls that surrounds the enemy's main base. Naruto could already see the defenders scramble on the wall to position themselves. One of the generals spoke, we are, Naruto-sama. We'll begin the attack when you're ready. Naruto nodded before taking a few steps forward from his army. Looking back at the three generals, Naruto said, when the wall falls, begin the attack. The three generals nod their heads before Naruto looked back the wall and took a deep breath. You ready, Kurama? Asked Naruto to his longtime partner. As always. Now let's destroy a base. Answered Kurama before Naruto's other tenant suddenly spoke, if you need me, partner, I'm always ready. That you do, Drake. That you do. Answered Naruto, before going into his six-pad Sage mode. Being the new Jubi Jinchuriki, his six-pad Sage mode changed as well. Rather than being in its signature colored gold and black, his cloak changed to the color of black and white. To complete his look, 9 truth-seeking balls were orbiting behind him, to which he can make when one is lost or destroyed. Extending his arms forward, Kurama's visage manifested around Naruto before, with the help of Kurama, positive black chakra and negative white chakra in an 8:2 ratio formed on the open mouth of Kurama's visage to make a bijou bomb. Gathering the enough energy to destroy only the walls, Naruto released the bijou bomb that rocketed to the wall in mere seconds before a deafening sound was heard and then a blinding light emerged from the explosion. When the dust settled, a large chunk of the wall was blown to pieces while the defenders were thrown off from the top of the walls, either dead or severely wounded. Looking back to the three generals, Naruto commanded begin the attack. With Grayfia, Surzex, and Falbium. Grayfia, Surzex, Falbium, and their selected soldiers arrived where the supposed main supply line's depot was located. Looking over the base, Surzex commented, just like Naruto said, this will be a walk in the park. It seems that their forces were sent to the main base to defend it, judging by the lack of guard detail patrolling. Looking where the supplies were held, Falbium stated, and there's our target over there, pointing where he was looking at. Grayfia and Surzex looked at where he was pointing before Falbium added, Surzex, you and Grayfia take some of our men and destroy that depot while I'll take the rest and act as decoys. Both Redhead and Silverette nodded their head before taking some of their men to get into positions. Falbium looked at the remaining men before saying, come on, we have a job to do, guys. A collective, yes, Falbium-sama, was heard before he led them to the far side of the base to start their operation. Back with Naruto. Naruto led his forces inside the base with considerable resistance, coming from the Loyalist Devils. Spearheading the attack, Naruto managed to plow a straight line into heart of the main base of the Loyalist Devils. Flush out any opposition inside this base. If they surrender, capture them and bring them to me afterwards. If they refuse, you all know what to do, commanded Naruto before blocking a sword strike over his head, using one of his truth-seeking balls that changed into a Chikudo, before kicking his would-be attacker on the stomach that launched the poor bastard straight onto the far side of the wall. The soldiers closest to him responded with a collective of, it will be done, Naruto-sama, before relaying the orders to everyone. Looking at the rows upon rows of barracks that he could find, doing the necessary hand signs before saying, Mokutan, Jukai Koten. Slamming his hands on the ground, the barracks he was looking at was suddenly uprooted by trees before being consumed by the ever-growing greenery. Making a handful of clones, Naruto ordered them to help with the attack before backhanding one of the Loyalist Devils that tried his luck in killing the blonde sage. Assist the others. Capture anyone that surrenders. The clones nodded before heading out to do what the original commanded. Looking at his surroundings, he couldn't help but feel that this was all too easy. That there's something wrong about this operation. Almost as if they are walking into shaking his head to flush out those train of thoughts, Naruto proceeded to disarm, maim, kill, or dismembered any poor saps that was over in their heads and thinking that they could take down the blonde sage. Unknown to him, He wasn't the only one who is feeling that there's something wrong with all of this, and they are walking into a trap. With Grayfia and Surzex. Grayfia, Surzex, and a handful of their soldiers have finally managed to infiltrate the supply depot. Minutes of their insertion, Falbium began his attack on the far side of the base to focus their attention on him, so that Surzex and Grayfia's team could infiltrate without any opposition. The duo and their men began planting explosive tags, courtesy of Naruto, in key points of the supply depot. All they need to do after planting the explosives was for them to activate any of the seal, preferably the nearest one to the exit, before the timer on all the planted seals will begin before it will explode. While they were planting the explosive tags, Grayfia, as well as Surzex, couldn't help but feel on edge. Like this was all too easy for them to accomplish. If they were honest to themselves, they felt that they were in someone's trap. And just like that, an ominous voice was heard throughout the depot, solidifying what they were feeling. What do we have here? We have traitors in our midst. Surzex and Grayfia narrowed their eyes before muttering at the same time, Rise of Levon Lucifer. And there he was, Rise of Levon Lucifer, floating near the ceiling of the depot. But he is not alone. Along his side were the other Maus, Kateria Leviathan, Cruzari Asmodeus, and Shalba Beelzebub. Looking down on the redhead, Rise of said, Ah, Surzex, it's so nice of you to visit. Shifting his gaze to Grayfia, Rise of added, and the silver-headed bitch of a traitor is also here. My, this day has been going so well. Surzex, Grayfia, and the others got into their battle stance before the former spoke. Rise of please. Let's end this now. If we continue this, there will be nothing left of our race. Rise of could only chuckle darkly before answering, Bah. Save me from your pacifistic way, Surzex. We're devils. We're on the top of food chain. Not the fallen angels. And certainly not the angels. If we combine our forces now, we could rid the world of angels, fallen angels, or any race that's not devils. The survivors will be slaves. We will rule them, Surzex. We will rule them. Surzex sighed tiredly before saying, You're a man, Rise of Rise of smirked darkly before answering, I take it as a compliment. Suddenly, the door of the depot was blasted inward before Falbium, and the remaining men he have ran towards them and spoke hastily, Surzex, it's a trap. All of this is a trap. The bulk of the army that's supposed to be at the main base is here. We show Falbium was cut off when Surzex suddenly spoke without looking at him. I know, Falbium. Raising an eyebrow, Falbium followed where Surzex was looking before his eyes widened when he saw the four Maus hovering near the ceiling. Shit. Muttered Falbium. Rise of and the other Maus dropped from their hovering position before landing on the floor. Looking at Surzex's group, Rise of said with a smirk, What now, Surzex? Your trap. There's nowhere else for you to go. Surzex narrowed his eyes before he spoke to his men, saying, All of you, retreat. We're going to hold them and cover your escape. One of their men suddenly shouted, But, Surzex-sama. He was cut off by Falbium, saying no but soldier. Go. We got this. The soldier was about to answer back but the glare from Grayfia was enough for them to hightail out of there. Raising one eyebrow, Rise of said, Oh? What's this? Are you going to fight us, Surzex? Surzex didn't answer. But he flared his power of destruction to make his point, along with Grayfia, who flared her own ice magic, making the room drop a few degrees every passing second, and Falbium, who released his demonic energy to the maximum. Rise of sighed before motioning for the other Maus to power up also. Looking at Grayfia, Rise of said with an evil smirk, saying, Oh, by the way, Grayfia. Your sister misses you so much. Surzex and Falbium's eyes widened before looking at Grayfia. Grayfia's ice magic suddenly spiked after hearing what Rise of said, freezing anything from where she stood before shouting, What did you do to her? Rise of smirk widened before answering, Oh, nothing much. Since the last time our resident interrogator visited her down on the palace's dungeon, she's been sleeping cozily for some time now. And that did it? For the very first time, every control that Grayfia had on her emotions broke before rushing at Rise of in hopes of impaling him. Surzex was about to stop her from attacking but Grayfia was faster than him, thanks to Naruto. Grayfia. Wait. Looking at Falbium, he added, Come on, Falbium. Let's help her. Falbium nodded before rushing the four Maus with Surzex. Rise of and the other Maus dropped to their battle stance before saying, Come. And let's get this party started. And all hell broke loose after that. We have taken the base. We have won, shouted one of the soldiers in Naruto's army. Looking around him, the base was razed to the ground. Bodies of loyalist and anti-Satan faction devils littered everywhere. Looking at his 3 generals, Naruto nodded at them when they nodded him. Walking up to them, Naruto asked, "What's our situation, generals?" The one on the middle answered, "The base is ours, Naruto-sama. We sustained substantial number of casualties, but it was all worth it." Naruto shook his head before answering, "That may be, General. But still, casualties are casualties." Looking at the general on the left, he added, "How about our prisoners? How many did we take?" Gesturing for the gathered chained devils, the general answered, "We captured about 1/4 of the occupying army here." Looking back at Naruto, the general added, "If I may, Naruto-sama. But why did we even capture them? They support the current Maos. If they were the ones attacking, they wouldn't even take us prisoners if we were defeated." Naruto looked at the prisoners before answering, "Simple, General. They were forced in fighting this pointless civil war." Gesturing for the general to look back on the prisoners, to which the general did, Naruto added, "Look at them in the eye and tell me that you can't see it in their eyes that they didn't want any of this." Looking back at the general, Naruto added once more, "That's why I offered them to surrender. To give them a chance to escape this hell of a war." Looking at the dead loyalists, Naruto concluded, "The ones who fought us, those are the ones who support the current Maos. Those were the ruthless, vile, and scum of the devil race." The 3 generals were flabbergasted. The 3 of them didn't know that there were devils in the army of the loyalists that didn't want to fight. That wants to join them in the fight against the current Maos. If it weren't for Naruto-sama, they would have slaughtered them all. They wouldn't have spared them no quarter. As one, they thought on the same time that if he was a devil, and rule alongside Surzex and the others, they would follow him. They will be loyal to him. And they wouldn't have it any other way. Naruto was about to order them to pack up and return to base when a soldier suddenly ran up to him out of breath. Naruto recognized the soldier as one of Grayfia's lieutenant in her battalion that attacked the main supply depot of the loyalist devils. Remembering his name, Naruto asked Kenji, "What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be with Grayfia, Surzex, and Falbium to attack the supply depot?" Taking a deep breath, Kenji relaxed himself before answering distressingly, "Naruto-sama. It was a trap. The supply depot, the intelligence, everything. It was all a trap." Naruto gripped his shoulder before saying, "Slow down, Kenji. What do you mean? What's going on?" Looking directly on Naruto's eyes, Kenji answered, "It was the Maos, Naruto-sama. All 4 of them, they were waiting for us." Widening his eyes, Naruto looked at the 3 generals and said, "That means this base, they turned the base into one giant bait for us. They took the gamble that at the very least, Surzex, or one of the leaders of the anti-Satan faction will lead the attack on the depot." Looking back at Kenji, Naruto asked, "Where's Surzex? Where's Falbium?" Tightening his grip on Kenji, to which Kenji grimaced at the force of the grip, Naruto added, "Where's Grayfia?" Taking a deep breath, Kenji answered with a downcast look, We were ordered to retreat by Surzex-sama and the others. They hold them off for us to escape." Releasing his hold on Kenji, Naruto focused on sensing Surzex and the others. But to his horror, he couldn't feel them. "What the hell? I can't sense them." One of the generals spoke, "Oh no, if Kenji speaks the truth, then it's the work of Kateria Leviathan." Naruto tightened his fist, unconsciously releasing some of his power that was so dense and concentrated that the very ground he stood shattered before shouting, "Son of a bitch!" Looking back at the 3 generals, Naruto added, "Generals, hold the base until I returned. I'll be going to support Surzex and the others. You 3 are in charge now." And just like that, Naruto disappeared in a swirl of crimson lightning, making the 3 generals and Kenji hope that Naruto arrive in time. Naruto arrived at where the main supply depot of the Loyalist Devils was located. Looking over the base, could see that almost all of the soldiers that was occupying the depot were converging on the main supply depot. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto sensed Surzex's power of destruction fluctuating inside the structure. "Kurama, we're up," said Naruto to his longtime partner. Nodding his head, Kurama answered, "Let's go." Taking it as his K, Naruto jumped from his vantage point atop of a hill before landing at the back of the advancing Loyalist army. Activating his Sage mode, Naruto made the horse hand seal before taking a deep breath and said the name of the technique that would make the legendary Madara Uchiha proud. Senpo Katan, Goka Mekyaku. And just like that, a literal sea of flames was let loose from the very mouth of the enraged blonde sage that covered over half of the main supply depot, vaporizing any devil that the flames came in contact with. While this was going on the outside, Naruto's tenants were at awe at what Naruto released. Especially the new tenant that was residing inside of him. "Amazing, if I were still alive, I could have mistaken my new partner as a dragon in human form," said Drake, while watching his blonde partner lay waste on the loyalist devil's base. I know what you mean. The first time we saw this technique, it was used by one of the founders of our partner's village against the allied shinobi forces," said Kurama. "How did they counter this technique, if I may ask?" asked Drake to Kurama. "That's easy. What better to counter a literal sea of flames by a literal wall of water?" answered Kurama with a smirk. "And the sea of water was conjured up by one man as well?" asked Drake again with a raised eyebrow. "No. It took almost 10 shinobis that mastered the technique that can conjure up a wall of water," answered Kurama. Drake was about to answer Kurama as well, but was cut off when the latter suddenly spoke. "He's done. Now, to take care of the remaining pests." Drain nodded before shifting his gaze from Kurama to what Naruto was seeing and continued to watch what the dragon's new partner would do next. Back on the outside, Naruto was running towards the depot while dodging, parrying, or slicing any poor bastards that was brave, or stupid, enough to attack the blonde sage in hopes of stopping him. Dodging to the left, Naruto backhanded the offender using his right hand with such force that the devil that attacked him flew straight to the next devil that was supposed to attack him next. Twisting his body, Naruto followed through with a spin kick that hit the next attacker on the face, breaking the offender's neck on the process. Grabbing the dropped sword by the recently dead devil, Naruto sliced the neck of the closest loyalist devil before using Gakido to absorb the incoming spell attacks. After absorbing the casted spell against him, Naruto extended his arms out sideways before muttering, "Kakudai Shinra Tensei." Literally like the name suggests, instead of pushing anything at the direction the user wants, it expanded from the epicenter where the user stands, uprooting and destroying anything from a 1-kilometer radius. Paying no mind at the destruction around him, Naruto continued his run to the main depot. He entered the depot and was about to confront the Maos when he saw a familiar red-haired devil, lying on the ground, beaten, bruised, and bleeding, with some of the loyalist soldiers scattered around them, dead. Looking ways away from Surzex, Naruto found Falbium with the same injuries as Surzex, with the same amount of bodies he took down before passing out. Taking a knee, Naruto put his right hand on Surzex's forehead before using a Mayatan to heal him from his injuries. Making another CLS clone, Naruto nodded to his clone before doing the same thing with Falbium. Surzex stirred from his unconscious state before his eyes snapped open, his power of destruction swirling around him, and was about to attack the person right beside him before his eyes widened when he noticed it was his sensei and close friend who was beside him. Surzex averted his gaze towards Naruto before the latter asked, "Surzex, I'm here. What happened? Where's Grayfia?" Surzex balled his fist when he heard the last question. Still not looking Naruto's eyes, Surzex answered, "Rise of him. Rise of him and the rest of the Maos happened. We held them off as much as we could, but the three of us, against them we could do only so much." The blonde was silent. Surzex could tell that the blonde was angry. No, he was livid. But it was not directed at him. Then his sensei asked again, "Surzex, where's Grayfia?" Mustering the courage to look at his sensei, Surzex looked at Naruto on the eyes before answering, "They took her, Naruto. They said she will pay for her crimes and they will have her sister watch what they were going to do to her." For a moment, the blonde was silent. Naruto just looked at Surzex, but the latter could tell that he wasn't focusing on him. His blonde sensei then closed his eyes before the very ground he was sitting on cracked and the whole complex was shaking. Surzex, for the very first time, almost faint by the sheer force and killing intent that his blonde sensei was releasing. Even Falbium, who just woken up after healing from his injuries, felt that he was going to black out again from what Naruto was releasing. After a few more seconds, the shaking stopped and both Surzex and Falbium could breathe again after the feeling of their sensei's unbridled, unfiltered killing intent. Naruto then stood up from his position before turning on his heels and walked out from the depot. Surzex and Falbium looked at each other before the both of them ran to Naruto to catch up with him. When they caught up with him, the former asked, "Naruto, where are you going?" Without looking, Naruto answered that made both Surzex and Falbium feel a cold ran up to their spines. What should I have done the moment I arrived in this universe? Both Surzex and Falbium looked at each other before Surzex asked again, "You mean he was cut off when Naruto suddenly spoke? I stayed my hand in finishing this war in favor that you four will be the ones who will finish this by training you four to surpass the current Maos." The two friends looked down in shame when they thought they failed their sensei, but was surprised when Naruto added, "And I'm proud to say that it was all worth it." Surzex, as well as Falbium, tightened their fists before the latter spoke, "But we failed. We let them get away with Grayfia." Naruto shook his head before answering, "You may have been beaten, but in return, you both also saved your men." The two of them widened their eyes before the blonde added, "All of your men safely got back." The blonde stopped walking before looking back at them, adding once again, both of you didn't notice, but it took them hours before they reached me and told me what was happening. Both Surzex and Falbium widened their eyes before the former stuttered, why you mean we were fighting for hours? Naruto nodded his head before explaining, the both of you held on for hours before you both passed out. Not only did you fought against 4 Maos, you also fought against some of the soldiers that entered the depot. Surzex looked at his open hand. They were fighting for hours. Never in his life did he imagine he could fight the 4 Maos, as well as some of their soldiers in the span of hours. Surzex shifted his gaze to look at Naruto. He then bowed his head from his waist in a 90-degree angle before saying, thank you, sensei. Falbium followed his example and said the same thing as Surzex, thank you as well, sensei. Naruto gripped their shoulders before making them stand straight and said with a smile, you're welcome. His face gained again a serious look before adding, Surzex, you both gather the rest of our army and rendezvous on the main base we attacked earlier. Surzex nodded before he smiled and said, so, it's time? Naruto nodded before answering, yes. They leave me no choice but to act. Turning on his heels, and Naruto was about to leave when he suddenly added, we're ending this war once and for all. And just like that, he disappeared within a swirl of crimson lightning. Surzex looked at Falbium before saying, I don't know about you, but I almost feel sorry for the 4 poor bastards. Almost. Falbium raised one of his eyebrows and asked, why is that? Surzex could only shook his head at his friend before answering, if you were always awake and not sleeping your ass off, you would have noticed it by now. Judging by his silence as his Surzex summarized in one word, Grayfia. Falbium's jaw dropped comically, before saying, no way, I thought you called dibs on her? Surzex laughed before motioning for his friend to follow, and answered, I did. But this past few months, I already saw that her heart has already been taken. And I'm happy for them. He then looked at his friend with a goofy smile and added, besides you heard rise of him. She has a sister. Falbium could only sweat drop before he shook his head at the redhead's answer. Surzex then activated his teleportation circle before saying, come on. We have a war to win. His friend nodded his head before joining the redhead inside the glowing magic circle before disappearing in a flash of light. Surzex and Falbium arrived at their main base of operations after traveling via the former's teleportation magic. When the lights died down, they were immediately assaulted by their 2 friends who was asking them questions on what happened to them. Surzex. What the hell happened? Your unit just arrived a little while ago. They said you all were ambushed? And the Maos themselves were also present and leading the ambush. Asked Ajuka to his best friend while eyeing him up and down to see if he has any injuries. And what was a pressing aura we felt? It was so powerful that it literally shook the place. And it all came from where you 2 have been? Asked Seraphal with a worried look plastered on her face. Surzex and Falbium looked at each other before the former answered, well, to answer your questions, yes, it came from where we are, Seraphal. But it wasn't us you felt. Taking her baffled look as his cue to elaborate, Surzex continued, we were ambushed by the Maos themselves. They were waiting for us. We assumed that they predicted that either us 4 will stick together or separate ourselves into pairs. Gesturing to themselves, Surzex added, as you can see, their prediction was accurate. Falbium continued, we fought them, but not before letting our teams that came with us retreat first. I, Surzex, and Grayfia fought the 4 Maos along with the garrison forces that were present on the depot. Falbium looked at his closed fist before adding, the garrison forces were backed up by half of the army that was supposed to be at the main base that Naruto was besieging. Looking at Ajuka, Surzex continued where Falbium left off, we matched them in every turn, Ajuka. You could say we could have won. But what, Surzex? What are you saying? Asked Ajuka. Surzex was about to answer but Seraphal beat him to it. I think I know, Surzex, where's Grayfia? Asked Seraphal, dreading what would be the answer to her question. Surzex looked down, clenching his fist tightly before answering, she was taken. Ajuka and Seraphal's eyes widened before the former asked, taken? How? Falbium continued where Surzex left, we were caught off guard when Shalba Beelzebub blasted me away using his magic. Crozuri Asmodeus and Kateria Leviathan used that moment to subdue Surzex using their magic when he momentarily looked at where I landed. I was about to help Surzex when Kateria Leviathan used her own magic to plant me in place. Surzex walked to the large window in the room, overlooking the town where their base was located. That's where everything went to shit. Flashback. Surzex gritted his teeth before shouting, damn it! I can't move! Try as he might, Surzex couldn't get out from the magical shackles that Crozuri Asmodeus and Kateria Leviathan conjured up from their magic. Looking at where Falbium is, he couldn't help but get frustrated even more from their predicament. Fucking great. The one time where Naruto is on a different operation than we are, it all went down to shit. Surzex thought before looking at where Grayfia was fighting Rysavim Lucifer. Shit. Grayfia's in trouble. We need to help her. Surzex was brought out of his musings when Kateria added more pressure on his shackles that made his knees buckle, making him kneel on the ground. Looking at Kateria, he saw her smug look on her face before she spoke. Don't bother trying, Surzex. There's no escaping from my binding chains. Looking at where Surzex was looking at, she added with a smirk, watch, you traitorous bastard. Watch as Rysavim show that ice-wielding bitch what we do to traitors. And like Kateria said, Surzex, along with Falbium, couldn't help but watch on how Rysavim beat Grayfia to ground and practically ran circles around her. When it was all over, Grayfia was lying on ground, bruised and bleeding everywhere on her battered body. If it wasn't for her stomach moving, they would have thought that Rysavim killed her. The three mouths gathered around Rysavim before the latter said, Can you see now, Surzex? Can you see now that you all are outmatched against us, Mouse? This civil war you are waging against us is pointless. You will lose. And I will bathe in your blood when this all over. Rysavim then looked at the battered body of Grayfia before adding, And her? I will make an example of her. With her sister being the witness. Mark my words, Surzex, it won't be a pretty sight. I know that you value her, Surzex. Not just a comrade, or an asset, but a lover. I will enjoy to his and the other three's surprise. Surzex cut them off by chuckling with a shaking of his head. Tightening more her chains around the redhead, Kateria shouted angrily, What are you laughing at? Don't deny it, Surzex. We know you love her. Even before the war, you have always kept your eyes on her. Surzex winced at the tightening of the chains around him, but still continued chuckling to himself. Rather than answer Kateria directly, Surzex spoke while still chuckling, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Looking at Rysavim, Surzex continued, You're right, Rysavim. I do love her. Looking down at Grayfia, he spoke more, but her heart is already taken looking back up to them, and I'm okay with that. Surzex then grinned from ear to ear before adding, I'm laughing not because I find it funny, giving them a once-over, he added more, but because I pity you for on what he will do to you all. Looking at Rysavim, Surzex finished with a smirk before saying, Especially you, asshole. Chuckling to his threat like it was nothing, Rysavim asked, Oh? And who might this he you are referring to? Surzek's grin never faltered, before leaning ever so slightly, Your worst nightmare. Shaking his head, Rysavim gestured with his hand before Kateria used her magic to tighten the chains on Surzex and Falbium once more, eliciting a scream from the both of them. As if fate was screwing with them even more, lightning coursed through the chains that was binding them, making them scream even more. The last thing Surzex saw before blackness took him was Grayfia being hoisted up by Shalba Beelzebub, before being shoulder-carried by him. End flashback. After Surzex finished telling the other two what happened, Seraphal then spoke, Okay, we get that part. But what about the oppressing aura we felt? You didn't answer that part of the question. Surzex rubbed the back of his head sheepishly before answering, Sorry about that, but I was getting to that part. Looking back outside the window, Surzex added, What you felt was Naruto-sensei's potent, unbridled and uninhibited killing intent. Both Seraphal's and Ajuka's jaw hit the ground after what Surzex revealed to them. Ajuka was the first to regain his stupor before asking the million-dollar question, Naruto-sensei, he's been holding back since the beginning, isn't he? Surzex looked at his best friend before answering, Trust me, Ajuka. If you were there with us. If you were there to feel it at point-blank range by this time, Seraphal regained her senses and was listening in on Surzex. No words can describe what I felt earlier. Looking at all of his friends, he then finished only that he will finish now what we started. Both Seraphal's and Ajuka's eyes widened before the former asked, You mean? Surzex nodded before Falbium added, Yes, Seraphal. We will finish the war today. Naruto will finish the war today. Naruto-sensei asked us to gather the rest of our army and rendezvous on the Loyalists' main base we capture. After that, we head for the capital. Ajuka nodded before both Ajuka and Seraphal teleported away to relay the command to their army. Falbium looked to Surzex, nodding his head. He then conjured up his own teleportation circle before disappearing to help gather their own forces for the upcoming battle. Surzex then looked back out of the window once again before thinking to himself, I guess I get to inform our families, as if just realizing his train of thought. Surzex slumped his shoulders before muttering, Why me? Back at the camp, no one dared enter Naruto's tent, when he came back from his sudden leave before the battle ended on the main base of the Loyalist Devils. No one even questioned him when he said that he was not to be disturbed, and only notify him when Surzex and the others rendezvous with them. and since then, he never came out. The generals, and even the army he brought, could feel the power practically oozing out the tent where Naruto resides. What's wrong with Naruto-sama? Is he mad or something? I heard that Grayfia-sama was captured. That's maybe the reason why he's acting like this. What? Grayfia-sama has been taken? How? No one knows for sure. The soldiers who went with Surzex-sama and Falbium-sama are tight-lipped about it. For whatever reason could that be, I think they made a big mistake. You could say that again. Whispers and rumors were spreading like wildfire about why he was acting like this within the camp. They're not wrong in their assumptions by any means. But still, they should mind their own business. Hours have passed since the battle has ended. The soldiers were resting. The wounded were transported away to be treated properly. And the guards are alert than ever. One of the guards who was watching from the walls of gate of the base noticed an army was marching towards them. He was about to sound an alarm when he spotted the banner they are carrying, and it was one of their own. Open the gates. Reinforcements have arrived, shouted the guard. One of the soldiers below heard him before asking his superior, reinforcements, sir? His superior answered, I'm in the dark as well, son. Regardless, looking at the soldiers who are manning the gate controls, he shouted, you heard him, men. Open the gates. And I want it yesterday. Nodding their heads, they opened the gate and was surprised to see that Surzex, Falbium, and even Serafal and Ajuka were present. Plus, judging the size of the force they brought, it was the rest of their army. After the rest of the army settled in, Surzex and the others then walked towards where the generals were standing before addressing them, generals. The three generals bowed to their leader before one of them spoke, Surzex-sama, we were told you would be coming. Looking at the soldiers they brought, he added, though I'm not sure I was informed you would be bringing our soldiers. Surzex nodded his head before answering with a smile, judging by the look you're giving me, I figured that. Looking presumably at Naruto's tent, Surzex asked once again, is that Naruto's tent? The general nodded before answering, yes, Surzex-sama. Naruto-sama hasn't come out since he came back. Looking at where Naruto's tent was located, he added, he ordered us not to disturb him and notify him once you arrive. Surzex nodded at him before walking towards his sensei's tent. Taking a deep breath, he was about to enter his tent when his sensei's voice was suddenly heard from the other side, Surzex. Wait outside for me. Surzex gulped from the amount of power he was feeling inside his sensei's tent, before suddenly it vanished. Taking a step back, he waited for his blonde friend to come out. And when he did, all, except the four soon-be Maos, suddenly dropped to their knees by the sheer weight of power Naruto was releasing. Both Surzex and Falbium grimaced. This was the power they felt when he came for them. The only difference is that it's more controlled. More powerful. As for Ajuka and Serafal? What is this? Just by his mere presence, it's suffocating. And the weight of it all, Ajuka thought. They knew their sensei was powerful, but not to the point they are having problem in breathing. Surzex and Falbium were right. He's leagues away from us. And I think this is not his full power, Serafal thought. The Maos made a big mistake, and it will be their downfall. Naruto surveyed his camp. He saw the soldiers, even the generals, are on their knees. He let out a tired sigh before reining in his power and control. Before they know it, they could breathe again and stood up from their kneeling position. Naruto. Control your anger. You're better than this. Admonished Kurama. Their time will come. And it's near its end. I know, Kurama. But this wouldn't have happened if I just made her stay at the base. This wouldn't have happened if I was the one who is with her. Roared Naruto back to his partner. Then are you blaming your friends? Asked Drake. No, answered Naruto, having a hard time reining his anger. It's no one's fault, Naruto. We understand what you're feeling. If it was my mate who was taken, I would be pissed as well. Naruto didn't answer and was about to cut the connection when he suddenly realized, wait, mate? Who said she was my m-? He was cut off by Drake when he suddenly added, when the time comes, and you face the four Maos, they will know the wrath of the Red Dragon Emperor. Naruto nodded before exiting his mindscape, completely forgetting about the question he asked to Drake. That was smooth of you, spoke Kurama with mirth in his voice. Drake shrugged his shoulder before answering, I do try, my furry friend. Besides, I want our partner to realize it himself. Shaking its head at his answer, Kurama and Drake refocused on what's happening outside of their host. Returning to the real world, Naruto walked up to Surzex and said, I see you brought everyone, Surzex. Surzex shook his head from the feeling he felt earlier before answering. It is what you asked, am I right? Naruto nodded his head before narrowing his eyes at his student. Spill it, Surzex. What are you not telling me? Surzex sweated profusely before answering. Well, you see, he was cut off when a crimson magic circle appeared beside him, with the Gremory clan symbol at the center of it. Shit. When the magic circle disappeared, two people, or rather, two devils appeared from it. One was male. He has the appearance of a middle-aged, handsome-looking man with long crimson red hair that is tied in a loose ponytail with a black hairband. He also has bright blue eyes that are the same with Surzex, and has a short red stubble on his chin. The other one was female. She has short brown flaxen hair, violet eyes, and looks to be like the same age as Surzex. His sister maybe? That's odd. He didn't tell him that he has a sister. Surzex approached the newly arrived redhead and flaxen-haired woman before he introduced them to him. Naruto, I would like you to meet my parents. Gesturing his right to the red-headed man, this is my father, Zeoticus Gremory, Duke of House Gremory. While, gesturing to his left to the flaxen-haired woman, this is my mother, Venelana Gremory, the Duchess of House Gremory. Naruto widened his eyes for a moment before bowing. It's a pleasure to meet you, Zeoticus-sama, Venelana-sama. Smiling to them, Naruto proceeded in introducing himself to them. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Zeoticus nodded his head while his wife smiled back to him. It's a pleasure as well to finally meet the teacher of my son. I've heard nothing but praises, coming from my son about you, said Zeoticus with a smile. Naruto smiled Surzex, with the latter rubbing the back of his sheepishly. Yes, it's really good to finally meet you as well, Uzumaki-san, said Venelana, still having that calm smile of hers. Naruto waved one of his hand in front of him while saying, please. Naruto is fine, Venelana-sama. Venelana nodded her head before answering, alright then, Naruto. Looking at her husband, Zeoticus nodded his head before she turned back to Naruto and said, Naruto, there's someone who wants to meet you first. Looking at Surzex for confirmation, he saw him sweating more profusely, who nodded his head to him. Raising one eyebrow at him, Naruto returned his attention back to Venelana and asked his own question. Who might be this someone who wants to meet me, Venelana-sama? As if on K, a golden magic circle appeared in front of them, with the Bale clan symbol at the center. Knowing full well who's coming to see Naruto, all the devils, except the Gremory family, kneeled with one knee and bowed, as a sign of respect. When the magic circle disappeared, Naruto was greeted by a middle-aged looking man with black hair and peaceful-looking violet eyes, wearing a very pristine noble attire. The middle-aged man scanned the area before looking at Venelana. The man then smiled at her before he said, Hello, my dear, Venelana. Looking at Zeoticus, he added, Zeoticus. He looked at Surzex next, who was still sweating profusely. He nods his head towards him, who in turn, nodded back at him, albeit rather stiffly. Looking at Naruto, he approached him before standing in front of him and said, So? You're the human who's not only commanding my army without my approval, but also ordered the whole army to gather here for some unknown reason. Tell me, whelp. Give me a good reason why I shouldn't erase you from existence, right here, right now. Raising his power, and showing him a bit of his power of destruction, he introduced himself. My name is Zekrom Bale. And I will be your end. Naruto once again could feel his anger rise up again. He thought he could intimidate him with this. Please. Madara is much more intimidating than him. Plus, he wasn't in the mood for this kind of bullshit. So. Without any warning, Naruto flared his own power to at least match Zekrom's own level. The ground suddenly cracked from where he was standing on, and his cerulean blue eyes changed to his Rinna Sharingan. What the hell is this K-Kid? He can match what Zekrom GG is releasing, and I could practically feel that this is just a glimpse of what he could do, Zeoticus thought, while still having his eyes wide as dinner plates. I am possible no one has ever released this much power to rival Zekrom GG's own level of power, not until now, Venelana thought. Same as her husband, her eyes are wide as dinner plates as well. Zekrom widened his eyes slightly, before Naruto suddenly said, I don't care who you are, Zekrom-san. But to answer your question, I am going to end this civil war yours, once and for all. Looking at Surzex and his friends, he added, I should have done that 6 months ago, but I saw the potential in Surzex. Looking at his friends, I saw potential in Ajuka as well. In Seraphol. And in Falbium. He looked back again towards Zekrom. So, instead of finishing this pointless civil war of yours, I trained the strongest of your generation to match those 4 wannabes. You call Maos and let them finish this. His anger rising up again, the level of power he was releasing right now eclipsed what Zekrom have. making him sweat a little from the power he was feeling. But those 4 wannabes recently just made a huge mistake. Zekrom practically wheezed out his question by asking, what or why you? Naruto leaned in and said their worst nightmare. Naruto leaned back before turning on his heels and walked out on him. Where do you think you're going, human? Naruto glanced back at him before answering, ending this fucking war. With all is said and done, Naruto once again continued his walk to the gates. When he was about to cross the gate, Naruto used Kamui to teleport himself out of everyone's sight. Gritting his teeth, Zekrom looked at Surzex and said, Surzex, you and your friends return to our base with forces. We're done here. Zekrom was about to use his teleportation magic when Surzex suddenly answered, no. Looking back at the redhead, Zekrom asked, what did you just say, boy? Narrowing his eyes, Surzex answered back, I said no, Zekrom-sama. In a flash, Zekrom was about to backhand this disrespectful redhead when his hand was suddenly grabbed. I will not let my sensei fight this war on his own. Releasing his hand, Surzex then walked past his mother's ancestor, but not before saying, you can have your army. Releasing his wings, Surzex then sped off to the capital to aid his sensei. Surzex was not the only one who defied Zekrom. Ajuka, Seraphol, and Falbium released their own wings, with the former apologizing to Zeoticus and Venelana for their son's action before following their red-headed friend. Zekrom fumed and was about to conjure up his power of destruction to execute the 4 who disobeyed his orders when, forgive us, Zekrom-sama. Looking back, he was surprised when he saw more than half of the forces occupying the base have their wings on the ready, with the 3 generals on the front kneeling in front of him. Looking down on the one who spoke, he saw him looking at him, and he added, but we follow where Naruto-sama goes. Standing up, he bowed to him and said, if he's going to war, then we'll be right beside him until the end. After saying what is needed to be said, the 3 generals took to the air, along with the original forces who fought with them. Looking at the shrinking silhouette of the devils who willingly followed that blonde-headed human, he couldn't help but smile a bit, and said, he's certainly an enigma. A delicate hand touched his shoulder, and the owner of said hand said, he really is. Looking at the flaxen-haired beauty next to him, he asked, tell me, Venelana, everything you know about him. Venelana nodded her head before saying, sure, Zekrom Gigi. But let's go back to base first. A swirling vortex suddenly appeared just outside the capital. After some time, a blonde-haired man was standing in its place when the swirling vortex slowly disappeared. Naruto surveyed the city. Inside of this is where Grayfia would be, along with her sister. Entering sage mode, Naruto closed his eyes before searching for the life force of his friend. Up until now, he's still torn between taking another step between Grayfia and him, or just stay between what they have right now. He just couldn't find it in himself to ask the silver-haired beauty. Well, mostly because she might not reciprocate what he was feeling for her. Naruto's eyes suddenly snapped open. Grayfia's life force was fading, and it's fading fast. And based on what he sensed when he found Grayfia, she was not alone. Please let me be on time, muttered Naruto, before disappearing in a swirl of crimson lightning. Moments before Naruto arrived, Grayfia was in a world of hurt. Her body ached everywhere. Blood was steadily flowing from her head, torso, arms, and legs. Her vision was blurry. And the only person who was in her mind was the blonde-headed man who she met 6 months ago. The blonde-headed man she got to know. The blonde-headed man who could make her smile. The blonde-headed man who was so sweet, thoughtful, and caring. The same blonde-headed man who told her to never give up, even though your odds in surviving are practically 0. Having that in mind, Grayfia looked at the man who was torturing her as she spit out the blood that was pooling on her mouth towards her torturer's face. Is that all you got? Wiping the blood off his face, the man backhanded Grayfia so hard, she lost consciousness for a moment. Returning to the land of the living, Grayfia looked back at the man and added, why you call that a backhand? The man didn't speak nor did he move. He then smirked before walking towards the only door on the room. Knocking on the door was opened before 4 soldiers entered the room. The torturer looked at her, with his smirk still plastered on his face. I've got to hand it in you, Grayfia. You're one tough nut to crack. Looking at the 4, he nodded to them before speaking to Grayfia. Let's see if your sister has the same tenacity as yours. Grayfia widened her eyes and was about to verbally attack her interrogator when one of the newly arrived devils hit her in the head, making her lose conscious. The interrogator snorted before motioning them to remove her shackles and transport the silver-haired traitor to the last place she will see before she disappear. Present. Grayfia stirred from her sudden slumber. The last thing she remembered was her never-ending beatings she got from the devil who was interrogating her. The insults she thrown back whenever the interrogator hits her. The sudden arrival of the additional guards? Interrogators? Grayfia wasn't sure. But she was sure when the 4 took their place around her, one of them said. Grayfia's eyes suddenly shot open and was about to try and use her magic to impale the bastard who dares threatened her sister when she felt her magic was somehow non-existent. Shaking her head from the blurry vision she was getting, her eyes suddenly widened when the blurriness from her eyes subsided. She expected to see was that she will wake up again on that dungeon where they tortured her for hours before her sudden trip to dreamland. What she didn't expect was that she was in a coliseum. And not just any a coliseum, but the Coliseum of the Mouse. Looking from left to right, she saw that the stands were filled to the brim with spectators. Some were the rich and powerful families that supported the 4 Mouse. Others were the loyalist soldiers. When her eyes landed on the makeshift wall that was in front of her, and spotted a very familiar mop of silver hair. When she realizes who that person was, her world literally stopped on their tracks. In front of her was her sister, chained on a makeshift wall. Her body was littered with cuts and bruises. Even though her face cannot be seen by the silver hair that was blocking her view, she could tell just by her breathing that her face was bruised to the point that her nose was probably clogged due to it being broken, and she resulted to breathe through her mouth. Euclid? Muttered Grayfia. She was about to call for her sister again when she spotted something or someone to her right. Looking to the person who she saw at the corner of her eyes widened again before a tear slipped from one of her eyes. The person she saw at corner of her eyes was her own mother, battered, bruised, and judging from her condition, she hasn't been eating as well. What did they do to you, mother, sister? Muttered Grayfia. Why, we just given them the proper hospitality that we Mouse can give. Grayfia's head suddenly snapped to the other side from where the voice came from. She knows that voice. She loathes the person with every fiber of her being. Rise of him, live on, Lucifer, hissed Grayfia. I hope you like what you see, Grayfia, said Rise of him, walking in front of her before adding, because they will be the last thing you will see before I erase from where you stand. Grayfia gritted her teeth. If only she can access her magic. At the very least, before she dies, she could have swiped that grin of his face. Rise of him then walked up to Euclid, before grabbing a fistful of Euclid's hair, pulling it back to make her see who was in front of her. Euclid didn't stir when Rise of him pulled her hair, nor did she move a muscle. Then, out of nowhere, using his free hand, Rise of him backhanded Euclid's face to wake her up. Wakey, wakey, sleepyhead. We have a guest. It's impolite to doze off when there's guest at our midst. Euclid slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Rise of him with her tired eyes before gazing at the silver-headed woman in front of her. Her eyes widened before tears formed from her eyes, as sister, said Euclid weakly. Grayfia was about to speak, when a blood-curdling scream came from her right. Dread and anger filled her when she heard the scream. It came from her mother, who she last saw was lying on the ground. Looking to her right, Grayfia saw Shalba Beelzebub, standing just a few feet away from her, holding her mother's hair as well to make her look up from her position. Her eyes stinging with tears. Please, Rise of him. Stop this. Don't hurt them any more than they are right now. Grinning like a madman, Rise of him continued, Don't worry, they won't be harmed anymore. And besides, didn't I say that I will make an example of you, Grayfia? Looking at the sister of the traitor, he added, Let this be a reminder to you. Looking at the matriarch of the Grayfia family, and you. Looking back at Grayfia, he finished, that when you cross me, I'll make sure I will break you. Looking at Kateria, he nodded to her. Kateria grinned evilly before walking towards Rise of him. Stopping just beside him, Kateria then conjured a magic circle on her hand before extending the said hand forward. 2 magic circles suddenly glowed under and above Grayfia. A barrier was formed when the magic was done being cast by the female Mao. Grayfia banged her fist at the non-existent wall. She has to escape. She needs to save her sister. To save her mother. To see Dash. She was cut off from her musings when she felt a jolt of electricity travel through her body that made Grayfia scream at the top of her lung. Looking at Kateria, she could see the bitch smirks from the pain she is inflicting on her. Standing up slowly despite the electricity coursing through her, Grayfia, once again, hit the barrier's wall with her fist. Again, and again, and again, until she couldn't lift her arm due to the pain. Dropping to her knees, Grayfia slowly looked to her sister, then her mother, and said, I'm as sorry, mother. Sister, smiling to herself and closing her eyes, Grayfia muttered the name of her most important person, next to her family before collapsing on the ground, Naruto. Euclid and their mother tried their best to break free from their captors. Their sister/daughter needed them now. They know they are next to be tortured, and possibly killed, after they're done with Grayfia. If they're going to die today, then might as well die as a family together. Euclid and their mother was about to use their last drop of magic to free themselves and rush to their dying sister/daughter when a crimson lightning suddenly strikes the barrier, shattering it into a million pieces, before hitting directly where Grayfia was and making a dust cloud that covered her body. The four Maos were shocked from the sudden turn of events. Even the spectators were shocked as well. They were knocked out from their stunned state when both mother and youngest daughter suddenly screamed at the top of their lungs, "Gray-fi." The Maos looked at each other before simultaneously narrowing their eyes. Rias and the others walked slowly towards the epicenter, their guard up and ready if there's an enemy. When the dust settled, they found a blond man kneeling in front of Grayfia, his back facing them, while his right hand was placed on her chest while his left hand was on her forehead. Rias and the others stopped their advance. The former was about to address the newcomer when they saw Grayfia's wounds were gone. Like she never even got damaged at all. Irritated on what was happening to her prisoner, Rias's power skyrocketed to the roof before speaking to the blonde. "How dare you heal that wretch of a..." He was cut off when the kneeling blonde suddenly spoke. "Rest now, my silver-haired beauty." Standing up from his kneeling position, the blonde man suddenly disappeared with Grayfia disappearing as well. The four Maos widened their eyes. That was pure speed. Not an ounce of magic was felt or released when the blonde man disappeared with Grayfia. The crowd from behind them suddenly gasped. The four Maos turned on their heels and was surprised when they saw the blonde man's back was once again facing them. In his arms, in bridal style, was Grayfia. But what surprised them most, and probably why the crowd gasped, was that two more of the blonde man was present and was helping the other to lucifuge. When Euclid and their mother were freed from their bindings and carried bridal style like Grayfia, a plum of white smoke suddenly appeared with a pop in front of the blonde man holding Grayfia. The original passed Grayfia's sleeping body to the newly created clone before walking to the two distraught and tired mother and daughter. Placing his right hand on Euclid's forehead, Euclid's injuries suddenly disappeared and felt like her body was back to 100%. Removing his hand, he took Grayfia's mother before placing the same hand on her shoulders, revitalizing her body and healing her every injury. He took a step backward before smiling at them warmly. "You're both safe now." Both Euclid and their mother widened their eyes before the latter asked, "Who are you?" Naruto was about to answer when a soft whisper of a voice suddenly spoke, "And Naruto?" Looking at the owner of the voice, Naruto widened his eyes before smiling softly, "Hello, Grayfia." Grayfia smiled at him before looking at his clone, nodding to it no to let her down. The clone nodded back before putting her down slowly to the ground. Grayfia walked up to Naruto before hugging him tightly, much to the blonde's shock and surprise. "You came for me," muttered Grayfia from his chest. Regaining from his momentarily stunned state, Naruto wrapped his arms around Grayfia before whispering to her, "I promised you that I'll protect you, didn't I? I'll move heaven and hell if that's what it takes to keep you safe." Unknown to the both of them, the mother and sister duo were smiling at the two. Whoever this man is, both of them could practically see and feel that they are more than colleagues or close friends. They never saw their daughter/sister like this before. And judging by the answer of the blonde to Grayfia, their guess isn't far from the truth. Grayfia pulled back slightly before looking at him with a smile. Her true smile. She then turned to her mother before motioning her right arm to her and said, "Naruto, I want you to meet my mother, Victoria Lucifuge." Naruto smiled at her mother before bowing slightly and said, "Hello, Victoria-san. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. It's a pleasure to finally meet the mother who raised the beautiful lady in my arms." The now named Victoria smiled at him. Not only for being polite, despite the circumstances they are in, but the blush on her daughter's face that colored her cheeks from hearing the blonde's answer. Not only that, but also trying to hide it from her. "Well, hello to you too, Naruto-san. It's nice to meet as well," answered Victoria with a smile. Grayfia was about to introduce her sister when Naruto suddenly spoke. "I'm sorry, Grayfia, but you three need to go with my clones. We'll continue this after I end this pointless war once and for all and dispose of the trash." Remembering where they were, Grayfia widened her eyes before realizing what her blonde was talking about. Looking at where he was looking, the four Maos were just standing there a few feet away from them. They didn't move even during their introductions? Were they that arrogant that they let them have their moment? Looking at the stands around them, Grayfia noticed the audience, the guards, and even the soldiers present didn't move as well. They aren't even talking. It's like they just dash. Her questions were answered when Naruto let go of her, much to her slight disappointment, before walking slowly towards the four mouths. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering why you four can't move, right? Or why are your guards just standing there like we aren't even here? Or maybe, why are your army just standing there and doing nothing? Said the blonde sage, still walking slowly to his prey. Not only Grayfia, but her sister and her mother was wondering as well. The three of them looked at the four mouths closely before noticing their eyes were moving frantically. Shadow possession. It's a signature technique that my friend's clan possess, continued Naruto. Almost everyone simultaneously looked down, even Grayfia and her family. When their eyes locked on the ground, they found out that a shadow was covering the Colosseum. Like something was blocking the light. But the thing is, there was nothing block at the first place, let alone cast a shadow. Once again, all eyes returned to the blonde before he continued. The way this works is that the user can bind his/her target with their own shadow, and once the user merges with his/her target's shadow. Naruto then stopped walking, stopping just a foot away from Rias of him, before raising his right hand slowly. Grayfia and her family raised one of their eyebrows before their eyes widened when all the devils who were binded to his shadow slowly raised their right, mimicking what their blonde savior was doing. Naruto chuckled ominously before adding, I have mastered this technique to the point that you could not open your mouths to talk. Grayfia and her family was very thankful that Naruto's clones were there with them, because that's when Naruto's pure and unbridled killing intent flooded the Colosseum, making the former buckle to her knees, but not before the clone who was holding her a while ago catch her. Naruto briefly looked at Grayfia with an apologetic smile, before focusing his wrath to the four mouths in front of him. I could easily kill every single one of you in a heartbeat with no remorse or mercy. I could have ended this pointless civil war of yours in just minutes the moment I arrived here. Taking a step closer, Naruto leaned himself forward to Rias of him, and continued, but that was before I met Grayfia and Surzex. With Surzex and his friends, I saw in them the potential that they could finish what you four have started. They are the devils who you people should have been following, and not these fools. You four will only lead your people to ruin and death. And in my eyes, Surzex Gremory, Ajuka Astaroth, Seraphal Citri, and Falbium Gladiolabilas has earned every right to be the new rulers of the underworld. During this time, Surzex, his friends, and the army who followed behind them recently arrived where they saw Naruto was standing, along with Grayfia. They were just hovering and was ready to attack and help their blonde sensei and commander when they heard Naruto's speech. Surzex, Ajuka, Seraphal, and Falbium were in tears. All this time, he acknowledges them. Even though they were always beaten to within an inch of their life, he would always make it to the point that he heals them, train them, then beat them again. He was strict, a sadist, and most importantly, he was a friend to them. Not once he questioned their decisions. Not once he ever complained. But also, not once did he acknowledge them for their skills. Now they know. Now they know. From day one, he already acknowledges them. Since day one, he has his full faith in them. Since day one, he was proud of them. Naruto then pulled back before he continued again. The plan was I train Surzex and his friends bring out their potential and beat you four on a straight-up fight. Giving a side-up glance, Naruto looked at Surzex before smiling at him slightly before returning his sights on Rias of him. And they did not disappoint. If I am to gauge them, I would put Surzex and Ajuka to be super devils, with Seraphal and Falbium close behind them. Naruto took a step back before turning on his heels and walked away from the four mouths. While walking, he continued, but you four made a mistake. A damn big mistake. The four mouths suddenly regained control of their bodies. Seeing that the blonde has his back turned against them, and thinking that his control wavered, they charged at him with reckless abandon. To an untrained eye, you could only see four blurs coming straight to the blonde. But on a trained eye, they were just moving fast enough that normal people would only think they disappear. Much to everyone's shock, even Surzex, Grayfia, Ajuka, Seraphal, and Falbium, Naruto managed to intercept and deal a heavy blow to the four mouths. Sensing the four would-be mouths coming, with his smirk plastered on his face, Naruto suddenly turned within a blink of an eye, making the four widen their eyes. Naruto ducked low, making Shalba Beelzebub miss his flying kick. The blonde then proceeded to doing a leg sweep that caught Rias of him off guard, making him drop to his side, but before he could touch the ground, Naruto punched his stomach with such force that his body flew to the end of the Colosseum, hitting the far wall and embedding himself on said wall. If you look closely, he's screaming bloody murder while trying to extricate himself. Naruto then leaned back to avoid a punch that came from Kateria Leviathan, before grabbing the back of her head in vice-like grip and proceeded in slamming her face on the ground below, hard. Still gripping the back of her head, Naruto lifted her up before punching her in the face with the same force that he used on Rias of him, launching her in breakneck speeds before slamming where Rias of him is located. Looking at his remaining targets, Naruto gave them a cruel smile before he suddenly disappears in front of them. Kruzuri Asmodeus and Shalba Beelzebub look frantically everywhere, trying to find their blonde opponent. Kruzuri widened his eyes when the blonde suddenly reappeared in front of him. He was about to retaliate when the blonde suddenly kneed him on the stomach, stunning him in seconds. He then grabbed Kruzuri at the back of his neck, tossing him in the air, before delivering a roundhouse kick to Kruzuri's head that launches him towards Rizavim and Cat Area. Both of them were just recovering from their beatings before Kruzuri crashed onto them. Shalba Beelzebub wasn't fazed on what the blonde did to his cohorts. Feeling that he's superior to the blonde and could take him, Shalba didn't waste a moment before pressing his attack on Naruto. Naruto dodged every punch, kick, spell, and even a headbutt from Shalba, much to the irritation of the latter. Unknown to him, Naruto was just lining him up to the others, and when he saw that he was in a clear view of the three would-be Maos, Naruto smirked before grabbing the offending arm that tried to punch his face with his left hand, before raising his right hand and placing it in front of Shalba's chest. His fingers extending like expecting a handshake before delivering a 1-inch punch to his chest that reverberated throughout the Colosseum. Shalba's body was launched with tremendous force that when he hit the three Maos, they were also carried by him and went through the walls of the Colosseum to the other side. Looking at the audience, one would think that they were still in the effect of the jutsu Naruto trapped them in, but in truth, he deactivated the shadow possession jutsu the moment the four Maos attacked him. They were silent and unmoving because of the sheer power of the blonde was releasing through the air. Walking to the gaping hole where the bodies of the Maos went through, Naruto spoke for all to hear. I understand that your forefathers were once angels. Angels who have fallen from their graces when they followed the man named Lucifer. Kurama opened one eye before grinning from ear to ear. It's time. The red dragon of domination stood up from his perch before roaring in agreement. Naruto kept on walking, his power still rising to unimaginable heights. Someone once told me that fallen angels fell from being angels because they committed one of the 7 deadly sins. A bright green glow was starting to emanate from Naruto's right hand. He then asked me, if you were an angel, what deadly sin would you fall into? A red gauntlet was slowly forming on his right arm. From the day he asked me that question, I didn't have a solid answer on what sin I would fall into. He stopped walking before looking back at Grayfia, who was gaping like a fish and was staring at his arm. Naruto smiled at her before turning into a smirk, looking at his students who was also gaping like a fish when they saw the gauntlet that was showing for all to see. Looking back at Grayfia, Naruto continued, but then the 4 assholes took the woman I love from me. She is everything to me. And they would take that from me? Looking back at the hole, Naruto noticed the 4 Maos was coming in hot and ready for another round. Naruto closed his eyes before finishing. Now, I will give you all the answer to the question what that someone once asked me. Naruto's form was covered in a crimson light that blinded the whole audience. When the light died down, Naruto's body was covered in a red dragon armor with green jewels that cover his body and a pair of dragon wings on his back. Welsh Dragon, Balance Breaker. From this day on, it will forever be remembered as the day that the dragon's sin of wrath was born. Welsh Dragon, Balance Breaker. Power. Unimaginable power. That was what every present devil is feeling right now. And it was coming from the transformed blonde that was standing in front of the Devil Kings. I am possible this feeling, there's no doubt about it. Surzex didn't have time to finish his sentence when Ajuka finished it for him. The boosted gear, he's the Red Dragon Emperor. Our sensei is the Red Dragon Emperor. He's been holding back on us all along, said Falbium, still in awe at their sensei's revealed hidden power. Naruto thought Seraphal. She couldn't help but shiver from the sheer pressure her sensei was releasing. This feeling wasn't even the same as last time he flexed his power to put Zekrom into his place. Same with Surzex and his friends. Grayfia and her family were having the same discussion as them. Grayfia, why didn't you tell us that your boyfriend was the Red Dragon Emperor, said Victoria to her eldest daughter with slight awe. Grayfia, despite being shocked at what Naruto revealed to them, blushed at the statement her mother told her. Mother, this is not the right time. And for the record, I didn't know he was the Red Dragon Emperor, exclaimed Grayfia, though I may have already known since I sensed something in him when I first met him. Shaking her head from the shock and awe she was feeling, Euclid smirked before saying, Mother, sister, shh. The show is about to start. The mother and daughter duo looked at each other before looking back at Naruto's form from afar. Please be careful, my beloved, thought Grayfia before smiling to herself. Naruto was enjoying himself. This feeling. This seemingly limitless power within his grasp. He didn't have the time to test the boosted gear all by himself, as he always made clones to practice with his boosted gear and learn everything what they could on how to use it. And now, he's going to make the 4 assholes in front of him his personal training dummies to practice on what his clones have learned from his new partner. Smirking, Naruto willed the scale mail from his head to retract and let them see his smirking face after seeing his transformation. Surprised? Asked Naruto in a curious yet sarcastic tone. Rise of him and the others stopped on their tracks. Shock evident on their faces. This human has the boosted gear in his grasp, and has full mastery and control of his sacred gear. This isn't good. The Red Dragon Emperor has finally revealed himself, after the death of its previous wielder centuries ago, thought Xiaoba Beelzebub. Looking at the new wielder of the boosted gear, he couldn't help but shudder at what he was feeling. And judging from this pressure, this power, I don't even know if it's coming from his sacred gear or himself. Looking at their Lord Lucifer, he added to his thought process, Rise of him, I hope you don't make a mistake in handling this. We are not prepared to face someone like him. It will be the death of us if you screw this up. And as if his words in his head had been heard, Lady Luck had just decided to abandon them to the wolves, or should we say to the dragon. Nice light show you have there, punk, said Rise of him with a smirk after regaining composure to himself. Fuck me sideways and call me a bitch, the idiot has done it, thought Xiaoba, before gritting his teeth in anger. Naruto raised one of his eyebrows before looking at the most sensible being in the group, which, at the moment, was Xiaoba Beelzebub. Is he serious? Asked Naruto. Xiaoba could only shook his head as his answer. Who the fuck are you supposed to be? You think you could match us Maos? Especially me. Rise of him, Levon Lucifer. The strongest of the devils. The most feared and revered devil in the whole underworld. Shouted Rise of him, releasing all of his power in an effort to scare the blonde bastard who has the gall to challenge them. The 3 other Maos could only widen their eyes. Rise of him never truly released his power like this before. It towers everything, and even eclipses the power at what the Red Dragon Emperor and the 3 of the Maos combined. I may be wrong about this, thought Xiaoba before powering up to maximum. Both Kateria Leviathan and Cruisery Asmodeus followed after. Up in the air, Surzex and the others could only gulp at what power the 4 Maos were releasing. This isn't good, Sensei's in trouble. With the other 3 powering up, combined with Rise of him who's already at his maximum, they totally eclipsed Naruto's own power. Come on, we should help him, Ajuka said, ready to enter the fray and help his sensei. And for once, he could go all out and show him how far he has come. The other 2 nodded their head, as well as the other devils who followed them. Even if they are no match against the 4 Maos, the soldiers, as well as their generals, will do everything they can to help the blonde human who was fighting for them. To their shock, Surzex raised his arm to stop them and said, No. Let Sensei fight this on his own. His friends widened their eyes at what he said to them before Seraphal suddenly exploded in anger. What do you mean, no, Surzex? He's no match against them. Smiling at his distraught friend, Surzex answered, Trust in our sensei, Seraphal. Looking at his 2 other friends, he continued, Please. Just trust him. He looked back at Naruto and thought, Naruto, I know you can do this. Besides, our full power is just below them. This is a walk in the park for you compared to us if we were in your shoes. Naruto could only stare in wonder. This was their full power. I'm so disappointed. See, this is what overwhelming power feels like. This is the power of the greatest of all of the 72 pillars. This is the power of the Maos. This is the power of Lucifer, cackled Rise of him, enjoying the wide-eyed expression of the blonde bastard in front of him. Naruto blinked once, and again, before he bellowed out a laugh that oozed sarcasm if he listened well enough. What's so funny? Shouted a very angry Rise of him. Laughing for a solid minute. Naruto controlled his laughter before wiping his eyes with one of his fingers. Why you are? Damn, I didn't know you were a comedian. Rise of him could only grit his teeth. This bastard has the gall to laugh at the most powerful devil in history. Who does he think he is? Meanwhile, with the others. Oh shit, the collective thought process of the other 3 beside him, and knowing what's coming next. Regaining his composure, Naruto looked Rise of him in the eye and said, Is that all you've got? The 4 Maos widened their eyes, as well as the surrounding spectators as they heard what the blonde had said to them. And just like that, the pressure returned, but this time, it was tenfold. The very ground where Naruto stood cracked at the pressure he was releasing. His eyes changed from its beautiful cerulean color to blood red, with concentric circles forming on his eyes. And with every concentric circle, 3 tomos were circling slowly, hypnotizingly, totaling in 9 tomos per eye. Around the side his eyes, veins could be seen popping up, giving him a very menacing and intimidating look. The 3 of the 4 mouths took a step back. The blond man in front of them was no human. No human has this kind of power, and they couldn't help but shiver at the pressure the blonde was releasing. This was not part of the plan. He was not part of their plan. He's an enigma. A wrench that was thrown to stop their plans of total domination. For total control. For absolute power. Ryzovim was frozen in place. For the first time in his life, he has finally felt the one emotion he hadn't felt before: fear. Fear for the blonde monster. The blonde monster in front of him. Fear for his reputation as the strongest devil. And most importantly, fear for his very own life that the blonde monster can extinguish without even trying. Surzex and the others, as well as Grayfia and her family, could only widen their eyes for the nth time. This was the first time they have felt Naruto's power skyrocketed to this level. Even with Zikram-sama's power, they, along with theirs combined, wouldn't hold a candle to what their sensei/beloved was releasing. Oh, who were they kidding? For Underworld's sake, even if they combined their powers with the Mao's, it wouldn't still be enough. Naruto smirked before taking a step forward. In return, the 4 Maos took a step back. Naruto raised his hand and said, "Now then. Let's start this party, shall we?" Before aiming his raised hand at Ryzovim, and said the words that was heard by all, "Bansho Tenin." The tomos in his eyes spun rapidly, and before Ryzovim knew what's going on, he felt his body suddenly jerked and was pulled towards the blonde monster's awaiting hand, pulling him like a piece of metal to a very powerful magnet. Catching him on his throat, Naruto then squeezed his hand ever so slightly on Ryzovim's throat to avoid breaking said throat before saying to his face, "You know, you talk too much." Looking back at the other 3 Maos, Naruto asked, "Now, which one of you fools tortured Grayfia?" Shalba and the others didn't move a muscle nor answered his question. Out of fear or what, nobody knows. To Naruto, on the other hand, he fully knows why they wouldn't answer. "No one's going to answer?" Naruto asked again. Ryzovim, trying his hardest to make the blonde to let him go. "Giving me the silent treatment, eh? So be it, I have other ways to extract the information I need," Naruto thought, his face slowly forming to a smirk. Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto then lifted his free arm before placing it on Ryzovim's head and said, "So be it. I'll have my answer, one way or another." With that, Naruto then uttered the word that would make Ryzovim scream his heart out, and for the rest to cringe. Ninjendo. And with that said, Naruto proceeded to slowly lift the said hand that was on Ryzovim's head, and the mouse screamed. Screamed like a newborn baby would when it is finally brought to the world. Screamed like innocent devils he persecuted, tortured, and killed during his reign of terror as Mao Lucifer. Naruto then cuts the technique early, lest he kills the asshole prematurely. "What did you do to me?" asked Ryzovim, his hands falling limp at his sides. Ignoring his question, Naruto sifts through Ryzovim's memories while his eyes are closed. "So you're the one who tortured Grayfia Kateria Leviathan." Naruto snapped his eyes open before throwing Ryzovim up in the air and proceeded to choke, slamming the limp body of the Mao Lucifer on the ground with such force that the ground gave way and made a sizable crater. He then raised his hand again and pointed it to Kateria before saying the words, "Bansho Tenin." And just like Ryzovim, Kateria came flying towards Naruto's awaiting hand before grabbing her throat forcefully and said, "Hello, Leviathan," practically spatting the last word out of his mouth like venom. Naruto then aimed his other hand to the other 2 Maos and said the words that would turn their world upside down, literally, Shinra Tensei. And just like that, both Kruzuri Asmodeus and Shalba Beelzebub flew towards the wall at top speed. With the force of an exploding star, they plowed through the said wall and continued on, their bodies skipping like smooth rocks on water. Looking back at his captive, Naruto leaned his head to the side of Kateria's own before he whispered, "You tortured the woman I love, wench. Since you love torturing people, especially the ones you've captured, I'll test this one technique that my brother and all but blood's brother loved to use when he's torturing his captured prey." Kateria widened her eyes, and before she could try anything in hopes of getting out of his death grip, Naruto moved Kateria's head in front of him and made eye contact with the latter's eyes. Naruto then said the very technique that one, Itachi Uchiha, once used on his best friend, Sasuke Uchiha, and his sensei, Kakashi Hatake. Tsukuyomi. Inside of the illusion world of Tsukuyomi. When Kateria Leviathan heard the said technique, she closed her eyes and waited for the inevitable pain the blonde monster would inflict on her. A minute had passed and she still hadn't felt anything. Opening her eyes slowly, Kateria's eyes slowly widened in shock when she realized where she was right now. The first thing she noticed was that the blonde monster wasn't holding her anymore. Kateria then noticed that she wasn't in the underworld anymore, with the world around her was colored in blood red and was a dead giveaway. Anything that was not colored in blood red was an inverted grayscale. She tried to move her body but found it impossible. When she looked down to check herself, she found out that she was tied on a cross by her wrist and on her ankles. When she looked up, she then found the blonde monster that put her in this world in front of her, with a predatory smirk plastered on his face. And just above the said blonde, she then noticed a red moon. A blood-red moon, with concentric circles orbiting from the center, along with 3 tomos orbiting per circle, spinning slowly and hypnotically. "What have you done with me? Where am I? What is this place?" shouted Kateria while trying to break free from her bindings. Naruto took a step forward before opening his arms wide and said, "Welcome to the world of Tsukuyumi, Kateria Leviathan." Naruto then conjured up a Chikuto before adding, "In here, time moves differently than in the real world. In here, you're trapped with me for years, unless I say so otherwise. In here, you'll experience pain like never before. And in here, for all intents and purposes, I'm a god." Naruto walked slowly towards the, in a manner of speaking, crucified Leviathan, the latter doing everything she could to try and escape from her bindings. "Please have mercy," whimpered Kateria, knowing that there's nothing she could do to stop what was coming to her. Naruto's facial features suddenly went cold as ice and said, "Sorry. I'm all out of mercy." The moment Naruto finished what he said, Kateria widened her eyes and screamed. "Real world present. Kaya!" After a full minute of screaming, Naruto released the twitching and drooling body of Kateria Leviathan from his grasp, letting the limp, and possibly brain-dead body of the Mao Leviathan drop to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Rise of him could only watch in horror. In all of the years he has been alive, never in his life saw that kind ruthlessness before. Least of all, a human at that. To a fallen angel? Sure. They were sadistic like that. To a devil? Hell yes. He's the prime example of that. But for a human? No. Hell no. That right there is a grade SSS sadistic mother dash. He was cut out of his musings when the blonde red dragon emperor suddenly flapped his dragon wings before slowly climbing up to the sky, above the Colosseum. Looking at the still present audience, Naruto then amplified his voice by using his chakra and said, "Hear me, people of the underworld. This war has gone long enough. Your kind is already at the brink of extinction after the Great War, and yet here you all are, fighting amongst yourselves. And for what? Just for the hubris and arrogance of some 4 wannabe kings." Looking at the approaching silhouette of the 2 Maos he blasted a while ago, Naruto then added, "I'm done watching from the sidelines. It's high time I change a few things around here." And with that said, he suddenly vanished before reappearing in front of the 2 displaced Maos who were going back to the Colosseum full steam ahead. Shalba and Kruzuri widened their eyes, and before they could retaliate, Naruto then roundhouse kicked Kruzuri away with his chain-mailed leg, breaking some of his ribs before proceeding and breaking Shalba Beelzebub literally. Moving in for the attack, Naruto kicked Shalba's right knee from the side, shattering the said knee in the process. Before Shalba could even scream his guts out, Naruto buried his emerald glowing gauntlet fist into his solar plexus, silencing the scream that was about to come out. And as if to make things permanent, Naruto grabbed Shalba's shoulder and waist before picking him up in the air and slammed his back on Naruto's chain-mailed leg, breaking Shalba's spine. With the tremendous pain he was feeling from Naruto's attack, Shalba Beelzebub fainted from the pain. Without even turning his head, Naruto raised his right arm to block a kick from Kruzuri Asmodeus, and then leaned left to dodge a follow-up kick. Dropping on the ground, Kruzuri turned around to face his adversary and was shocked to see that he disappeared from his sight. "Where are you?" shouted Kruzuri while looking around to find the blonde monster. To his surprise, Naruto whispered from behind, "Behind you." Alarmed and at the same time widened his eyes, Kruzuri turned around in a blink of an eye before he was assaulted by Naruto's lightning-fast strikes, despite fighting back. Naruto redirected a right haymaker with his right hand from the Mao, jabbed his left hand to his right shoulder, snapping his clavicle. Redirecting a punch from the Mao coming from the left, then grabbed said arm by the forearm before jabbing his right hand at the elbow, shattering the said elbow. Stepping back, Naruto kicked Kruzuri's right knee from the inside using his left leg, shattering the said knee before grabbing him on the face, muffling his screams of pain. All of this happened in a span of 10 seconds. Dragging the still screaming Kruzuri, Naruto grabbed the unconscious Shalba and reappeared back to the Colosseum. Every devil present in the Colosseum could only gape in shock. In just a span of 5 minutes, this blond man demolished and broke the remaining mouse. No devil came close to that. If this blonde enigma didn't exist, Surzex and his friends would be the only ones capable of challenging the 4 mouse. Dropping the 2 mangled and broken bodies beside Kateria, Naruto then looked at Ryzavim and said, "This is the price of your hubris, Ryzavim Lucifer. This wouldn't have happened if you just accepted the reality that you can't continue anymore what your ancestors have started. No war. No killing. Only peace in our time." Ryzavim gritted his teeth before trying his best to stand up. He couldn't, so he settled in kneeling in front of the blonde. Glaring daggers at him, Ryzavim spat, "Who gives you the right to meddle in our devil affairs? Who gives you the right to condemn me, the crowned and powerful prince of the devils? Who gives you the right to stop what is supposed to be our greatest achievement in all of devil history?" Naruto stared at him before taking a step towards him. "Who gives me the right, you say?" Another step. "I am the hope that has been given." Another step. "I am the answer to all living things that cry out for peace." Another step. "I am the protector of the innocent." Another step. "I am the light in the darkness." Another step. "I am truth and ally of good." Stopping in front of him, Naruto leaned down to make eye contact with the prince. "But most of all, I'm your worst nightmare." Naruto then raised his right hand sideways before an ethereal black and white longsword materialized from his hand. Gesturing for one of his clones, the clone nodded before moving and standing behind Ryzavim, placing the clone's hands on both Ryzavim's shoulders. With a simple flourish, Naruto then stabbed Ryzavim through the chest, making the latter's eyes widened. Ryzavim braced for the added pain he was feeling, but to his surprise, nothing came. Smirking, Ryzavim mocked the blonde monster in front of him. "After all that speech, is that all you've got?" Anticipating this, Naruto